Out of Time, Into You. Written by J. Bell. Narrated by Kevin R. Free. Chapter 1. All my dreams are about to come true. I can almost feel the raw potential crackling in the air. I'm riding a natural high as I cruise down the street with my best friend, our former school receding in the passenger side mirror. I smirk as it grows increasingly small and insignificant, because from now on, each action I take will be toward goals that actually matter to me, such as music. Needing to find the right tune to match my mood, I browse my favorite music app and settle on one of the weekend's older songs. I feel it coming. Once it's streaming over the car stereo, I look over at Hannah to make sure she approves. She nods, grips the wheel tighter, and starts to move her shoulders to the beat. Encouraged, I crank it up louder and contemplate the bright and shiny future ahead of me. I haven't escaped high school completely. The graduation ceremony isn't until another couple of weeks, and as for tomorrow, I check my phone again, remembering the text message that came while we were cleaning out our lockers. I didn't have time to read it then, but I give it my full attention now and see a photo of a black tuxedo with a red bow tie laid out on a bed. The text beneath it says, "What are you wearing?" I snort and send back, "Right now, nothing." "Tomorrow, to pram." I stare at the screen and shake my head in disapproval before turning down the music. The boy is about to graduate and he can't spell prom right? Jacob? Hannah tears her attention from the road to squint at the screen. "Are you sure autocorrect isn't to blame?" "I guess we'll find out tomorrow, if he picks me up in a stroller." She laughs, but looks a little apprehensive, which is strange because just moments ago we were jumping up and down in the school parking lot and squealing with joy. "Maybe he's one of those adult baby people," Hannah murmurs. "That's perfect." I do a quick image search on the internet, and not surprisingly, I'm spoiled for choice when it comes to grown men dressed in oversized diapers while sucking on pacifiers. I choose the most ridiculous of these and send it to Jacob. He replies with an animated GIF of an actual baby crying. So I send him a photo of the crimson velvet jacket that I ordered for the big occasion. Jacob responds with, "Wow, you're going to look so hot in that." Hopefully, because I plan on wearing it plenty more this summer while playing gigs. My goal is to book as many as I can to keep my skills sharp. When I start at Columbia College Chicago next semester, I want them to mistake me for an artist in residence. And then I want them to teach me everything I don't know, which is plenty. I've always had enough confidence to put myself out there and perform, but I've tried to pair that with the humility necessary to keep learning. And now I'll finally be able to focus on that. No more obligatory classes that won't be useful. Nothing against physics, but all I want is to major in music and minor in entrepreneurship. That should give me a decent chance of finding a way to earn a living from what I love most. I'm lucky to know what that is already. Some people, most of them probably, need more time to figure that out. Like my best friend, for instance. "You should learn to play the bongos," I say while staring at Hannah. "How hard can it be?" She laughs and shakes her head. "I don't think there's an instrument in the world that I can coax music out of." "There's gotta be," I insist. "I've seen you dance. You've got rhythm." "Not enough for me to enroll in Columbia with you." "They offer other classes," I say, trying a new tactic. "I'm going to need an agent and a manager." "Then it's a good thing I'm getting a business degree," Hannah replies. "I thought you were going to major in English." "That was last week." She looks a little panicked. "Wasn't it?" I shake my head ruefully. "All I know is that you won't be at school with me, and that is a serious problem. So what we're going to do right now is drive this car to the nearest music store and not leave until you found your instrument. Even if it's something lame like a kazoo." She smiles before seeming to consider the idea. I got one for Hanukkah as a kid and loved it. There you go, I say, as if the matter has been settled. Maybe we'll start a band. I clear my throat and do my best impression of an MC. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special performance for you tonight. Tearing up the piano is none other than our favorite local boy, Mr. Reginald Valentine. Accompanying him is an absolute legend, the undisputed queen of kazoos, Miss Hannah Watts. My fingers are typing on my phone as I say this, and the timing is perfect because a kazoo solo begins playing over the car speakers. Hannah laughs so hard at this that she nearly has to pull over. I love goofing around with her. That's why I wish things could continue the way they've always been. Not high school or any of that, but us being a part of each other's daily routine. I'm sure we'll still get together in between the demands of our new lives. Isn't that how it ends, though? I used to be best friends with Carlos Hernandez, but when his family moved across town and he ended up going to Glenbard South High School instead of Glenbard West, suddenly we weren't talking about the same people or events anymore. We still hang out on occasion, but we're not as close. I don't want that to happen with Hannah. She means the world to me. No matter where we end up, I tell her, we have to get together every day, for dinner maybe. She looks over at me, her expression earnest, and nods. Then she looks back at the road and slams on the brakes. Crap! Almost missed it! She means the entrance to a park, Churchill Woods. She manages to make the turn, and I start scanning the parking lot for familiar vehicles, because her driving us here is highly suspicious. What's going on? I ask. I told you I need help with something. Right. I try and fail to fight down a grin. It's a surprise party, isn't it? Who's coming? Family? Friends? Just us, Hannah says with a humorless chuckle. Maybe she should aim for a degree in theater because I nearly believe her. Then again, I don't recognize any of the cars, although they might be parked in the other lot. Come on, I say. What else could it be? Something important, Hannah says as she puts the car in park. She opens the door and climbs out before I can ask any more questions. I know she wrote a paper about a crumbling old ruin here, but I don't see why she would need to do further research or how I could help. No, I'm pretty sure that once we wander into the woods, I'll find a bunch of our friends laughing it up while drinking from a keg. Hannah takes a tote bag from the car's trunk. I consider leaving my backpack in there to keep it safe, but decide to take it with me. She calls it my man purse, although it's more useful than that. Not only does it conveniently hold my stuff, but it also makes a decent cushion to sit on, especially when the ground is still muddy from the recent rain. That'll come in handy soon. And besides, basketball shorts might be comfortable, but load them up with a wallet, phone, and keys, and they'll soon be around my ankles. I promise to look surprised, I say, as we walk down a paved path that winds between the trees. There's no party, Hannah snaps. Then she sighs. Remember when we used to play here as kids? Of course. Churchill Park doesn't offer much in the way of amenities. Technically, it's a nature preserve, so the absence of baseball diamonds or whatever makes sense. The most exciting feature can be seen as we round a corner and the trees give way, revealing the narrow waters of the DuPage River. Just beyond a stretch of open land, the path we're on becomes a bridge that doesn't cross the river completely, but leads instead to a long island in the middle of the water. This place felt so magical when we were young, providing the perfect backdrop for whatever games our imaginations could conjure up. Most often, we would pretend to be castaways who were forced to start a new civilization after a shipwreck. I can see why our parents liked bringing us here. Aside from the bridge, there is no other way off the wooded island, so we couldn't have gone too far astray. Mom and Dad would usually relax at one of the nearby picnic benches while we exhausted ourselves by running wild. If you want to play Robinson and Mary Crusoe, all you've got to do is ask, I say drolly, as long as we revert to our usual roles. You still want to be Mary? She asks. I smirk and nod. Then I hear a metallic clinking noise coming from the bag she carries. I try to hook a finger to pull it open so I can see inside. Hannah notices my efforts and begins to hustle. Soon we're chasing each other across the bridge while laughing, and it really does feel like we're children again. We stop on the other side to catch our breath. The pavement ends here, the ground beyond so muddy that standing puddles are scattered everywhere. We're not actually going into that mess, are we? I ask. Hannah turns a pleading expression on me, and I sigh before taking the first step. I'm wearing a pair of Nike Air Max, solid black and in pristine condition. That changes with the next step forward. The muscle shirt I've got on isn't ideal for hiking either, I realize, but I do my best to avoid branches and thorns as the trees close in around us. Our shoes are squelching in unison as we walk down the path toward a familiar destination. The gate. I've also heard it called the ghost door, or around Halloween, the portal to hell. Most people in the town of Glen Ellen, if familiar with it at all, simply call it the gate. The island we're trekking across is long and narrow. At the very tip where the land rises up and the river splits in two stands an old archway. Dual pillars made of massive stone slabs stacked on top of each other curve to meet at the top, like the entrance to some forgotten place. There is no surrounding structure. Nobody seems to know why the gate is there, or what its intended purpose was, but plenty have ascribed meaning to it anyway, including me. When we were younger, it was the front door to our castaway home. My friend Carlos once tried using it as a soccer goal, his ball ending up in the river beyond. First kisses often take place beneath the stone arch, and judging from the burnt-out fires and beer cans scattered everywhere, many have used it as a place to party. Not us. I'm disappointed to see, when the gate comes into view, that Hannah was telling the truth. We're alone out here. Remember when Aaron tried building a throne beneath it? Hannah asks. Of course, I say while smiling. My older brother had gathered up all the wood he could find and assembled what looked like a chair, but when he tried to sit on it, the entire thing crumbled and his royal ass ended up in the dirt. I still call him king of the termites when he gets too bossy. Hey, weren't they supposed to tear this thing down? That's exactly why we're here, Hannah says. We can't let them. We're close enough now to see what a sorry state it's in. The gate skews to one side, which it didn't used to. Not this much, anyway. The stone slabs have always been the target of vandals, but the spray paint has gotten so out of control that the surface has become dark and mottled. When we were kids, it had still been possible to read the crap that seriously determined people had chiseled into the surface. Dumb stuff like band names, the initials of lovers, and the occasional year. Someone from the city must have decided to preserve what was left, because at some point a fence was hastily erected around the gate. Even that is in poor condition, 2 of the chain link panels having been wedged open so that it's possible to gain access again. Sorry, I say, pinching the bridge of my nose, but I thought your interest in this was limited to the report you wrote on activism. #SaveTheGate, Hannah says without much enthusiasm. Her expression solidifies with determination as she surveys the damage. They could at least restore it. This should be a protected historical site. I mean, the tourists do flock here all summer long. I glance around the empty clearing pointedly. Hannah appears wounded. This place used to be special to us. And it always will be, I say, tapping the side of my head. Up here. They can't take the memories away. I'm surprised when her chin begins to tremble. Then her eyes fill with hellfire as she pushes through the opening in the fence. You don't have to agree with me, she says. I only need your help. I watch as she marches to one side of the gate. Once there, she drops the tote bag, which lands on the ground with a heavy thud. I stare in disbelief as she starts to pull a long length of chain from it. "What are you doing?" "Saving the gate," Hannah says. "Wait, you're going to chain yourself to it?" "They're supposed to tear it down next week. Did you know that?" "No," I say carefully. "Unless you told me about it, in which case I totally remember." "Where did you get a chain that long?" "From my dad's work." Her father owns an auto repair shop, which is good because it means he probably has some sort of tool to cut his daughter free. Wait, I say, holding up my hands. "Slow down. At least tell me the plan." "I'm going to—" "Chain yourself up. I got that much, but who's going to see? We're the only ones out here." "That's what I need your help with," Hannah explains. "We're going to live stream my protest." "Uh-huh. And when the police show up to find a black guy standing in front of a chained-up white girl, how do you think they're going to react?" She stops fussing long enough to glance up in concern. "Do you think they'll shoot you?" "Does a bear wipe his ass with a rabbit after shitting in the woods? I don't know, but I'm not sticking around to find out." "Oh." Hannah frowns in concentration before looking hopeful again. "I've got it. We'll make a video and you can upload it once you're safely at home." I laugh and shake my head. "I'm not leaving you out here. Listen, if they aren't going to tear this thing down until next week, why are we out here now? Prom is tomorrow." Hannah scowls and resumes wrapping the chain around herself again. I watch her for a moment. "This is about saving the gate, right?" "Of course," she says tersely. "Then let's come back on Sunday." "I'm not going to the stupid prom," she snaps. "I don't have a date. I never do." That isn't her fault. Hannah is a big girl. The world is full of people who are into that, but in a Midwest high school, all anyone cares about is what other people think. Like the closeted guys who want to do absolutely everything with me as long as it remains a secret. "I don't have a date either," I tell her. "You're going with Jacob." "No, I'm meeting him there." "I thought I was going with you." Hannah rolls her eyes. "Sure, but once he shows up, you two will start dancing, and I'll end high school as a pathetic wallflower. And what about afterwards when you two—" I snort and shake my head. "I'm not hooking up with him. Jacob and I don't have any chemistry. We're the only openly gay guys in our class. Neither of us is bringing someone, but we still want to represent, you know? Show everyone the dances aren't just for straight folks. And it's not just for skinny girls either. Come dance with us." She lets the chain drop to the ground and sighs. "It's not just prom. Everything is changing and it freaks me out. I'm starting college in 3 months and have literally no idea what I want to do. I'm clueless. You'll be hanging out with other musicians and won't need me anymore. And if that doesn't kill our friendship, just wait until you start touring." "Sounds like you've been busy planning my future instead of your own," I say, trying to lighten the mood. "Nobody said anything about me going on tour." Hannah shakes her head. "You're amazing, Reggie. Even if you don't realize it yet, you'll be famous someday. I'm just a nobody." "Amazing people have amazing best friends," I say, walking toward her. "You're so much smarter than me." That's no small compliment. We've both been in gifted classes for the entirety of high school. Popular kids might worry about having the best car or the latest clothes. For us brainy misfits, status has always come with the highest grade point average. But I adore Hannah for so much more than her intelligence. And you've got a good heart. The way you're always willing to help other people, how you sympathize with them instead of judging. I admire you. And someday you'll meet a straight guy who does too. Until then, you're going to college where you're going to party with me because this isn't the end for us. Why do you think I want to have dinner together every night? I'm scared too. Like you said, everything is changing. That's just the way it goes. We've got to keep looking forward. Speaking of which," I drop to one knee, ignoring the wet squishing sound this makes. "Hannah Watts, Would you be my date to prom? Her eyes fill with tears, and I know her well enough to tell that they're the happy variety. She pulls me to my feet and into a hug. I don't want to lose you, she says. You won't, I say, surprised by how tight my throat is. I love you, girl. I love you too, Reggie. We squeeze each other a moment before letting go. Are you serious about prom? She asks sheepishly. Yeah. I would have asked sooner if I knew you cared. You kept saying how stupid prom is. I still believe that, but I also want to go. Is that a yes then? I watch her cheeks turn pink before she answers. Yes. Good. Don't you worry about Jacob. I'm not his type anyway. He shot me down sophomore year, remember? She looks scandalized by this news. No! You never told me that. Probably because I was too embarrassed. I don't care if Jacob is interested now. He missed his chance. Feel free to remind him of that tomorrow. Really twist the knife and make him regret it. Hannah laughs, seeming more at ease. I like what you said about representation. You should dance with him. Alone. So there isn't any doubt. I don't mind being a wallflower for a bit. That's where all the good conversations take place anyway. She exhales and looks around, as if seeing it all from a different perspective. What a crazy plan. No kidding. You'd rather get arrested than go stag at a dance? They wouldn't arrest me, Hannah says dismissively. I'm too white and privileged for that. I figured they'd drive me home and that my mom would ground me from prom. I think about it and nod. Sounds like something she would do. Like when she made you quit the Girl Scouts. Took her long enough. I kept getting into fist fights, hoping it would happen. Love it. That's what your major should be. No need, Hannah says as she boxes the air. Everything I need to know I learned from the streets. She lets her hands drop and glances around once more, this time with affection. I really will miss this place when they tear it down. Me too, but you have to admit it's not the same anymore. No, it's not. Ready to get out of here? No way, this is our last visit to the gate. We've at least got to take some photos. She agrees, so we hold out the camera at arm's length to take selfies. Afterwards, we balance her phone on a low branch with the timer running so we can get full body shots of us standing beneath the gate. My own phone remains safely in my backpack since it's brand new, and I'm not about to let it fall into a muddy puddle. I can't expect my parents to buy me a replacement anymore. One more, Hannah says, picking up the fallen chain and draping it over her breasts. I want people to know that I risked my life to save this place. You can post it online and tell everyone I got arrested. Just make sure I look hot. Let's do it. We work together to stage the perfect photo. Hannah places herself against one of the gate's pillars, and I wrap the chain around her, just like she intended. We even muss her hair and put a little mud on one cheek, like she's been suffering here for days in the name of her noble cause. And yeah, she makes the whole thing work for her. There's only one crucial detail missing. Did you bring a padlock? I ask her. Oh, she chuckles to herself. I kept imagining that you'd tie the chain in a knot. Still think I'm the smartest? You're brilliant, I say, moving close and attempting to tie the chain into a cute bow. The idea is funny, but the end result looks sloppy. We could use my old combination lock, I say, tugging on the shoulder straps of my backpack. I've got it with me. No, this is perfect. Hannah drapes an arm dramatically over her forehead, resembling the classic damsel in distress. Hurry up and take a photo. The ground is so wet that I'm sinking. The mud sucks at my shoes as I move a short distance away. Then I turn and take a few more steps backward, trying to get the entire gate into the frame. I'm surprised by how askew it is. When we first got here, I didn't notice how misaligned the stones of the arch had become, like they've been slowly sliding out of position or... No, I can see them move. My stomach clenches as I look away from the screen. The gate is shifting. The top was slanted before, but now it's lopsided. Hannah notices my panicked expression and glances upward. She reaches the same conclusion and begins tearing at the chains. Reggie! Hold on. I drop her phone and sprint, shoving my way past the half-fallen fence. She's already gotten the bow undone, but the chain is still wrapped around her and the pillar multiple times over. Hurry! She cries. I grab one end of the chain and begin racing circles around her, noticing how deeply the bottommost stone has sunk into the mud. They won't need to tear anything down next week. It's all happening now. One last loop to go, but it's tangled up in the back. Hannah keeps pulling on it in panic, which only makes it tighter. My finger gets stuck between links as they come together, and I just barely manage to pull it free, ignoring the pain so I can rip at the chain some more. I finally get it loose enough that it drops to the ground. Hannah starts moving toward the opening in the fence. I'm right behind her, but she must not realize because she turns around as if worried about me. Go, I say, pushing at her. Her eyes move upward and widen. I follow her gaze and see a stone slab free-falling in the air. I shove hard, wanting to push her out of harm's way. We're too much alike. Hannah does the same thing. We both end up toppling backward, and as my arms pinwheel, there's no doubt in my mind that I'm about to be crushed to death. The last thing I see is the fear on my best friend's face before the world goes dark. No sound, no visuals, only the sensation of being squeezed so tight that there isn't room left for thoughts. And then, nothing. Chapter 2. Water strikes my face. Cold drops that cause my eyes to shoot open, but there is precious little to see. Night has fallen. I can hear the trees swaying above as they're pummeled by wind. A grumble of thunder sends fear down my spine. Where am I? I squeeze my eyes shut against the rain and take stock of myself. I'm lying on my back, but I'm not completely parallel to the ground. Something is pressing against my spine like an uncomfortable pillow. When shifting, I feel backpack straps rubbing against the skin of my shoulders. I slip my arms free as I force myself to sit upright. My body stiff as if I've been in the same position for too long. I raise a hand to shield my eyes from the rain just as lightning illuminates a pillar of the gate to my right. That's when it all comes rushing back. Hannah! I scurry away from the gate, worried that it hasn't finished toppling over yet. My heart is pounding as I blindly search for my best friend. My hands touch nothing but wet grass and mud. Panic rises inside me as I return to my backpack, ripping it open to get at my phone. The glowing screen tells me that it's nearly midnight. There aren't any notifications, or a signal. I turn on the flashlight and wave it around, but the rain is coming down so hard that it doesn't do much good. I feel woozy, like I've been drinking too much. But I'm still in one piece. The falling stones must have missed me. Not wanting my phone to short out, I turn it off and shove it into my backpack again. I tuck this against the trunk of a nearby tree where I hope it won't get as wet. With my hands free, I do a quick check of my head to make sure the adrenaline coursing through me isn't masking an injury. I don't detect any bruises or blood. How long was I out? And what happened to Hannah? She wouldn't have left me here, not by choice. Was she hurt? I stumble around in the dark, and even though I'm so lightheaded that I'm on the verge of passing out, I manage another hoarse cry. Hannah! No answer. Did we both get knocked out? Did someone find her and not me? I squint against the rain in my confusion. Where the hell is the stone slab that I saw falling? Is she pinned beneath it? Or did somebody already clear it away, maybe so she could be airlifted to a hospital or... Oh, God, what if she's dead? Hannah? I whimper. I feel a hand on my shoulder and turn around, nearly crying out in relief, but the sound catches in my throat. I can barely see the person in front of me through the rain. Another flash of lightning changes that. revealing a haggard face surrounded by wild hair and a scraggly beard. Two dark, beady eyes stare impassively into my own. The man looks dead. Maybe the rumors were true. The gate really is a doorway to hell. By the time thunder rumbles through the sky, I'm already running, pumping my arms and legs as fast as they'll go. I don't dare look back, even when I slip and fall, the thought of yellow, jagged teeth spurring me on. I can practically feel them biting into my neck. My eyes widen with mad hope when I leave the trees behind. I'm gasping for breath halfway across the bridge, so I stop and grip the rail, ready to jump over the side if I'm still being chased. I don't see anyone behind me, but it's hard to be sure. Without the cover of trees, the rain is even worse here. Fear propels me onward. The parking lot isn't far. If her car is still there, I'll know that Hannah is in trouble. That means passing through more woods, which I do at breakneck speed, the shadows seeming to close in on me from all sides. The parking lot brings welcome news. Hannah's car is gone. A taxi is waiting there instead. I can see letters on the door and a small sign on top. The interior light is on, a driver behind the wheel. I run straight up to him and hammer on the window, looking back in case a zombie is lurching after me. "What's all the ruckus?" The driver snarls as he rolls down the window. The man inside has a creased face and white, thinning hair, a half-eaten sandwich balanced on his stomach. I notice the shield-shaped badge pinned to his jacket, and when he reaches over to put on a brimmed hat, I feel a mixture of relief and fear. "You're a police officer?" I splutter. "Damn right I am. You better take a step back, boy." I do as instructed, noticing that the letters on the door aren't for a taxi company. The word police is written above a 3-digit number, and below that, the name of my town, Glen Ellen. What I mistook for a sign on top is a single red dome. The vehicle itself is dark and bulbous, with rounded edges. A real classic. I watch, completely confused, as the man climbs out and opens an umbrella while keeping a wary eye on me. The feeling is mutual. I'm not sure he's really a police officer, not in an old car like that, but he certainly has the right vibe as he points a baton at me. "You better explain yourself." "There's someone out there," I try to say between gasping for air. "In the woods." The officer barks laughter. "Spooked ya, huh? I know what he's doing out there. What about you?" "The gate fell. I think my friend was hurt. Have you heard about someone being taken to the hospital? Hannah Watts? I was with her." The officer glances toward the woods, seeming concerned. "There's a girl out there?" "I don't know." He rounds on me. "Either there is or there isn't. Did you take a lady friend out there for some necking?" "Huh?" He scowls. "Show some respect, boy. I'm losing patience." "Sorry, sir," I say through gritted teeth. It's just a little hard to concentrate at the moment. I'm shaking now, either from nerves or the cold rain that continues to beat down on me. He seems to finally realize the condition I'm in and walks around the back of his car. The man opens the trunk and takes out a thick green blanket. I'm thinking he might wrap it around me, but instead he opens the back door of his car and covers one of the seats. Then he steps aside. "Get in." I'm tempted, but I hesitate. Something is off. He might be dressed like a police officer, but not a modern one. Maybe he's one of those Civil War reenactors. A version that recreates police history instead. Is that a thing? "It wasn't a request," the man barks. Fuck it. At least it'll get me out of the rain. Besides, they usually don't shoot you while you're in their car. Too messy. As soon as I'm seated in the back, he slams the door shut, and I crane my neck to see more of the interior. This is an old car. A spotlight is mounted on the dashboard, and between the front seats, some sort of archaic equipment that I can't make sense of. But there's no sign of a dash cam, GPS, or anything digital. The smell of metal and oil fills my nostrils. "Let's try this again," the man says after he climbs back in the driver's seat. He tosses the closed umbrella into the footwell of the passenger side before twisting to face me. "What were you doing out there in the woods? Having some fun with your gal?" I answer with a question of my own. Why is this car so old? He makes a face like I'm an idiot. "Now listen here. I've got better things to do than play games. So I'm going to run you down to the station and lock you up for the night. Maybe tomorrow you'll feel like making sense." I don't know what to think anymore. Maybe the police thought it would be cute to break out a vintage vehicle. A PR stunt, maybe. I watch as he grabs an old CB receiver and speaks into the handheld microphone. A voice squawks back at him, using police jargon that sounds authentic enough. "You're really with the police?" I ask. "I'm sure as shit not with the fire department," he says, shaking his head as he turns the ignition. "What have you been drinking?" "Nothing. The girl I was with, Hannah Watts, can you ask dispatch if she was taken to the hospital?" The man looks at me in the rearview mirror and raises an eyebrow. "Why? Did you lose your temper with her?" "No! That stupid stone gate fell on us." He turns in his seat to consider me, his attention lingering on the bright yellow shorts I'm wearing. "Boy, oh boy," he says. "Young people dress uglier every year. But you sure don't look like a heap of stones fell on top of you. Let's see some identification." I begin to pat myself down, realizing with a jolt that my pockets are empty. Everything I had is in my backpack, including the biggest lifeline back to the people I love and trust. My phone! It's still out there in the woods! I need it! The man stares at me long and hard. Then he grabs the back of the seat and brings his face close to mine. I can see the white stubble on his sagging jowls and smell mustard on his breath when he says, "Breathe out." "What?" "You've been drinking." "I have not." He sniffs and looks confused. "Reefer?" I snort and shake my head in disbelief. "What century are you from?" He doesn't take offense at this. Instead, he turns back around and puts the car in reverse. "You're not right in the head," he says matter-of-factly. "We'll get you tucked up for the night, don't worry." "You can't arrest me," I say as the car finishes backing up and starts to roll forward. "I'm a minor." Not true, but my phone isn't the only thing I left in the woods. My wallet is out there too, including my driver's license. He doesn't know how old I am, or my name. I reach for the door, willing to make a run for it in the rain, but the handle isn't there. "You aren't under arrest," he responds. "We're just going to put you somewhere safe until we can figure out which loony bin you escaped from." This isn't cool. Am I being kidnapped? Or does the Glen Ellen Police Department really allow a retiree to drive around in this old car? "Can't you take me home, to my parents?" He grunts as we turn onto the main road. "Where would that be?" 665 Lenox Road, please, sir." He eyes me in the rearview mirror for a moment before he shrugs. "That's on the way to the station. Let's see what your old man has to say." That sounds better. I grope around for a seatbelt but never find one. Oh well, we don't have far to go. I could have walked home in nicer weather, which only would have taken half an hour. There isn't much to see on the way, especially in this weather, but I keep my eyes locked on our progress, still not trusting him. He makes the correct turn, but something feels off. We're still the only car on the road. Everything is so dark. I can't see most of the houses. Only when we reach my street does it begin to look more familiar. "That one," I say when my home comes into view. I yearn to be within the safety of its walls and to have the protective presence of my parents with me so I can finally figure out what happened to Hannah. She might still need help. The man I saw out there in the woods, maybe he did something with her. "This is where you live?" the officer asks, not hiding his disbelief. I clench my jaw. Our house is one of the most beautiful on the street. The most striking feature is the 4 white pillars clustered around the front door that stretch 2 stories high to support the half-moon roof above. Stately. That's how my mom always describes it. The lot next to ours is unoccupied and filled with trees, and on the other side, an extension has been built onto the house, including a sunroom which overlooks the front yard and the park across the street. "Yes, sir," I say, masking the animosity in my voice because I know what the confused expression really means. He can't believe a black family lives somewhere so nice. "My parents must be worried," I say pointedly. He turns around to look at me again, and I try to show him with my expression how desperate I am to get inside. After a long sigh, he says, "You better come with me," before climbing out of the car and opening the door so I can follow. As we walk along the cobbled walkway, I'm tempted to make a break for the porch, but I don't want to get shot in the back. As soon as we're close, I can't help it. I rush ahead of him and start pounding on the front door. He catches up and grabs my wrist to stop me, swearing under his breath, but I don't care because it's too late. I made enough noise to wake up the entire house. Sure enough, a light switches on inside. It'll be my dad, I just know it. He'll take one look at who I'm with and start saying that I'm in a world full of trouble. That's okay. I just want to be home again. The door swings open and I feel dizzy because a white guy in pajamas and a bathrobe is standing there. He adjusts his glasses and peers at us both. The man isn't my father. He's old enough to be, but I've never seen him in my life. "Officer O'Brien," the stranger says, fighting off a yawn. "What can I do for you?" "Sorry to disturb you at such a late hour, Dr. Parker," the officer says, sounding much more respectful in tone. "But I have a bit of a situation here, and, is this one of your patients, by chance?" The doctor considers me. "Could be. Have we met before?" "I live here," I say, trying to see past him because I know this is the right house. I was raised here. I have every single detail memorized, like the glass lantern hanging above our heads, which my older brothers broke when they tied a piñata to it, and the lantern is the right kind, but it's no longer broken. My mother lectured us about how old it had been. Irreplaceable. And yet there it is. Looking good as new. "He's not making a lot of sense," Officer O'Brien says, clamping a hand on my shoulder. "That's why I thought he might be under your care." "I'm perfectly fine," I growl. "What's going on here? Where's my family?" "George," a female voice says from inside. "What's wrong?" "Everything is fine, dear," the doctor says over his shoulder. "Now then, what seems to be—" I'm done playing around. I push past him, certain that I'll find a camera crew inside. This has to be a YouTube stunt. Mr. Beast will be inside with a big check, or the revelation that he's moved my family somewhere even better. Our own theme park, maybe. That would make more sense than what I discover. The interior is familiar, but as I spin around, the furniture is all wrong. The coats hanging by the door don't belong to my family. I recognize the stairs leading up, having placed my hand on the wooden banister thousands of times, but even the smell in here isn't right. I feel disoriented again. A woman notices me and screams. Feet thud down the stairs, someone my age rushing to her rescue, judging from the way he spreads his arms wide protectively. She's not my mother. He's not one of my brothers. A hand grabs the back of my neck and squeezes painfully, forcing me to bend over. "Everybody calm down," I hear the doctor shout. "No harm has been done. Let's find out what this is about." All I can do is whimper in pain. "Officer, please. Let me take a look at him." I'm finally released. O'Brien has a death grip on my shoulder, but it hurts less than him clawing into my neck. "I'd better run him down to the station," the officer says. "I'd rather you didn't," Dr. Parker murmurs, staring into each of my eyes one at a time. "If he's in shock or a temporary state of psychosis, locking him up will only make it worse." "I'm not crazy." I intend to say this with defiance, but my voice trembles. I'm starting to lose it. "Do you know what day it is?" the doctor asks. "Friday." I know what he's getting at, and I refuse to play along. Two little girls rush down the stairs and cluster behind their mother. Their older brother is still standing in front of them, wearing the same pajama and bathrobe combination as his father. His pale green eyes are locked onto mine, open and earnest instead of accusatory and afraid. Something deep inside of me latches onto them, like a beacon leading back to a safe place. I remember being in my grandmother's bedroom and how patient she was with my questions as I picked up her possessions or pointed at different objects. "What's this for? Where did you get that? Who's he?" "Daniel," I croak. The young man looks surprised. His expression matches my own. Of all my grandmother's treasures, my favorite was a black and white photo in a gold frame, inlaid with mother of pearl. Even as a little kid, I was drawn to the kindness of his face, or as I grew older, how attractive and even his delicate features were. "You know my son?" Dr. Parker asks from behind. "Yeah," I say. "How?" "I used to date him," my grandma would answer with a smoky chuckle whenever I asked about the photo. "But that was a very long time ago." My head is spinning. I've seen enough movies like this for the thought to have crossed my mind, but I dismiss the possibility as too ridiculous. Time travel doesn't exist, does it? Everyone is still watching us as Daniel and I stare each other down. "You know I start to say to him. "Gloria. You know her, right?" Daniel nods. His mother breathes a sigh of relief and begins ushering the young girls back upstairs. "Gloria?" Officer O'Brien repeats. "The daughter of our housekeeper," Dr. Parker explains. "If we could speak outside for a moment, officer. Danny, would you mind keeping... I'm sorry, what was your name again?" "Reggie," I say. "Good. Are you feeling calm enough to sit with my son in the living room for a moment? You'd have to promise not to have any more outbursts." The doctor's tone is warm. He sounds like someone who deals with children on a regular basis. I'm not a kid anymore, but I nod, since anything is preferable to being carted away by Officer O'Brien. I try not to stare as Dr. Parker has a quiet word with his son. Then the adults step outside, leaving us alone. Daniel flashes a nervous smile. "Would you like to sit down?" "Sure." I lead the way to the neighboring living room and flick the light switch, which is where it should be on the wall, but made of a heavier material. I fixate on this detail because it's one thing for all the furniture and decorations to be different. Those could have easily been taken out and swiftly replaced. But to swap out the light switches? The electrical outlets look weird too. "Would you like a glass of milk?" I only glance at Daniel, who is standing in the middle of the living room while watching me. I probably seem crazy, but I don't care. I move toward the front of the house, noticing more changes. I have a vague memory of my parents installing energy-saving windows when I was a kid. These are different. The frame's wooden instead of plastic. The glass sounds thin when I knock on it. "Are you okay?" Daniel again. I turn to face him. "What year is it?" He seems genuinely surprised by the question. If this was a prank, and I'm starting to have serious doubts, then he would have expected me to ask that. Although he could be an actor or... 1957. I search his eyes. They remain on mine for a few seconds before darting away, his face flushing. Is this a joke? I ask, moving toward him. Please, if it is, just tell me. I'm getting seriously freaked out. He seems intimidated before he glances at the front door and stands up a little taller. Everything is going to be all right, he says. Let's sit down together. I'm a stranger in their home. If this really is the past... God, that sounds stupid. Whatever is going on, I'll handle it better if I calm down. My mom always tried to teach me that. Staying cool and collected gives you the upper hand. Besides, if I'm being punked, they want me to freak out. I won't give them the satisfaction. I'll show them how clever I can be. I join him on a lime green couch with wooden legs, still searching the room for anything they missed. A forgotten USB charger plugged into an outlet, maybe. You know Gloria? Daniel asks me. I nod, distracted by the wall surrounding the fireplace, which has been painted canary yellow instead of a rich burgundy. Yeah. How? We're family, I tell him. Oh, so what are you doing here? I'm about to explain, again, that this is my home, but the truth hasn't gotten me anywhere so far. If this isn't some sort of sick joke, I need a convincing story that won't get me locked up, and a plan to get home again. The front door opens, Daniel rising to confer with his father. I ignore them both and remain seated, trying to think, which isn't easy considering the circumstances. I hear footsteps going upstairs before Dr. Parker returns alone to the living room. Would you like a bite to eat? He asks me with a friendly smile. You must be hungry. Yes, thank you. I don't have an appetite, but it gives me more time to think and analyze. The kitchen we enter is completely different. The counters, cabinets, appliances, all of it. I stood in here this very morning and ate a bowl of cereal while browsing my phone. Everything would have needed to be remodeled since then. Even a reality TV show with a huge budget wouldn't be able to do that. The house smells more like baby powder than fresh sawdust or drying paint. I know I'm at the right address. Yes, it was dark and rainy outside, but each of the houses along my street are unique, built at a time when neighborhoods weren't so generic, or at least offered more options. Even the products I get a glimpse of in the fridge that Dr. Parker opens look legit. I've never seen milk come in a plain glass bottle before. I decide to treat the situation as real. If some bleach-toothed host appears to ask how it felt to experience a simulation of the past, I'll laugh at myself along with my friends, but mostly I'll be relieved. Hard to go wrong with a roast beef sandwich, Dr. Parker is saying as he works at the counter. When's the last time you ate? Lunch, I say. Oh. A late dinner is better than none at all. I always try to eat 3 square meals a day. What about you, Reggie? Yeah, same here. He looks a little puzzled at this. Maybe I'm being too casual. When he leads me to a formica-topped kitchen table and puts the food down in front of a chair, I sit and try to show some gratitude. Thank you, sir. My pleasure. You can call me George Parker. And you are Reggie Valentine. Reggie Valentine, Dr. Parker repeats. That has a nice ring to it. Go on and get a couple of bites into you. And some milk. The weather is dismal. I notice you aren't dressed for it. I shake my head before taking a bite, so my mouth remains as full as possible while I piece together a cover story. That's hard to do when I still don't know what happened. Officer O'Brien said he picked you up by Churchill Woods. Yes, sir. I must have fallen asleep out there. Oh? I was resting and must have nodded off. He lets me eat a little longer before speaking again. I know this might sound like a foolish question, but what's the date? May 20th? And the year? I feel dumb saying it aloud, certain he'll laugh, but he doesn't. 1957. Last one, I promise. Who is the president? Damn. They made us memorize the entire lineup back in sophomore year, or was it even earlier than that? I still know most of the names, but the exact year is harder. Kennedy was the 60s, so it must be Truman. No, wait. Eisenhower? He nods as if satisfied. Good. Sometimes when we go through too much stress, our thoughts can get jumbled, but you seem to be thinking clearly. This helps, I say, holding up the sandwich before taking another bite. The bread is white, flavorless and spongy. I wish he'd put barbecue sauce on the roast beef instead of mayo. You mentioned Gloria earlier, Dr. Parker says. Yes, sir, she's my cousin. I see. Why did you expect to find her here? In fact, you seem to think that this was your home. Do you live in the area, Reggie? No. An excuse occurs to me then, but I'm uncomfortable with it. I'm from Alabama, a state known for being hostile to blacks, a fact that received national attention thanks to brave people like Claudette Colvin and Rosa Parks, who took a stand rather than remain silent. I might be sketchy on presidents, but I know my civil rights history. I have tremendous respect for those pioneers, and if it wasn't for the extreme circumstances, I would never lie about sharing their struggles. The racism I've experienced during my lifetime would have been much worse if not for them. I was having a rough time down there, and Gloria said I could come live with her family. Why did you have this address? She doesn't live here. Dr. Parker's eyebrows shoot up suddenly, as if he already knows the answer. Last winter. Huh? When her family stayed with us over the holidays, their furnace broke down. Gloria spent so much time at Sarah's desk while she was here that we sent it home with them. I know my grandma likes to write, but I don't understand what that has to do with me. Dr. Parker notices my blank expression. She must have used our home as the return address. I believe we received a few responses meant for her. I'd thank my good fortune if it hadn't dropped me here in the first place. Where does she live now? Not far, not far. I can take you there tomorrow. All the way from Alabama, huh? That must have been some journey. How did you get here? Amtrak? Did that exist back then? Or now, I suppose? Greyhound buses are old enough, right? I mostly hitchhiked, I say at last, deciding to play it safe. I see. Don't you have anything with you? A change of clothes, for instance? I did, but it's all out in the woods. I woke up in the rain and ran off without it. I don't mention the creepy guy who snuck up on me. My story is strange enough already. Dr. Parker seems to accept it, though. You're welcome to stay with us for the night, he says. I have to work in the morning, and I'd wager your uncle does too, so I'd rather let him sleep. I wouldn't mind getting back to bed myself. What do you think? I'd appreciate it very much, sir. Thank you. I finish off the sandwich and stand to collect my dishes, intending to bring them to the sink. Dr. Parker rises and takes them from me. I'm a pediatrician, he says, which means I'm a doctor to young people like yourself. I believe you could benefit from a mild sedative that will help you rest easier tonight, especially after all the excitement. Okay, I say. Just a moment, I'll be right back. As soon as he's gone, I consider running. My gut keeps telling me I need to go home, but I'm already there. Instead, I wash the dishes he left in the sink, leaving them in the rack to dry. No dishwasher, it would seem. I do open a few drawers, hoping to find an overlooked Pizza Hut flyer or whatever, but everything appears to be from another era. Dr. Parker returns with a stethoscope around his neck. "Do you mind?" he asks, lifting the metal circle at one end. I already know it's going to be cold. I shrug and lift my shirt. He presses the drum to different areas of my chest and then my back as he asks me to breathe in and out. I'm worried I'll have to turn my head and cough, but instead he stares into my pupils before seeming satisfied. I can't help thinking that a reality TV show would worry about getting sued if an unsuspecting contestant had a heart attack. Is that what this is? "Good news," Dr. Parker says, taking a brown glass bottle from his bathrobe pocket. "You're in excellent health." He twists off the lid and tips a single pill into it. "But I would still recommend taking this." I'm guessing it's Valium or something similar, and that he wants to ensure I won't go ballistic on his family if it turns out that I am crazy. A friend of mine was into pills. Witnessing how it messed up his life was enough to turn me off them forever. I'll make an exception tonight. I want to get knocked out. Maybe then I'll wake up where and when I'm supposed to be. He watches me as I swallow the pill. I make it easy for him to see that I did. "I've already spoken to the family about you staying here," Dr. Parker says, "and everyone says you're welcome. You'll be sharing Daniel's room tonight." "That's fine. Thank you." He leads me upstairs, my heart lurching with each corner we turn because no matter what's really going on, this isn't my house anymore. The door leading to the master bedroom no longer has the reassuring presence of my parents behind it. My brother's rooms, as we pass by them, are most likely being used by little girls. Adding insult to injury, I'm led directly to my old bedroom. Daniel is standing in the doorway with a friendly smile, even if it does look a little forced. I know things were different in the 50s and that people often left their homes unlocked without fear, but he can't be thrilled about bunking up with a total stranger. "Danny will help you get settled," Dr. Parker says with a yawn. "I don't want you staying up, though. Get to sleep, understand?" This is directed at his son, who nods enthusiastically. Dr. Parker is already trudging toward the master bedroom. "I'm just down the hall if you need me," he says with another yawn. I look back at Daniel. He gestures toward the bedroom like he's inviting me in. I'm curious to see how my room has changed, and once I'm in there, it stings worse than I expected. I almost always walk to the far wall when entering to turn on my stereo. Most of my friends are satisfied with a basic Bluetooth speaker or headphones. Me? I have a huge system that includes a digital receiver, CD player, vinyl turntable, and even a tape deck, because some music can't be found on any other format. When cranked up, the speakers are nearly strong enough to shake the teeth from your head. All I see where my precious stereo system should be is a white-paneled dresser. My framed posters of inspiring musicians have been replaced by school pendants and a map of the solar system. His bed is narrower, but in the same location as mine, shoved up against a wall to leave the center of the room clear. Daniel chose to put a desk by the window that overlooks the front yard. I considered doing the same until I noticed there wasn't an electric outlet near enough for my laptop. "Whenever I have friends spend the night, I always let them have my bed," Daniel is saying from next to it. "I'll sleep on the floor. I'm a Boy Scout, so I'm used to camping." I notice the sleeping bag that is rolled out next to the bed like the sidecar of a motorcycle and manage not to snort. "My friends usually crash with me in bed," I say. "Oh." He turns to consider the scene. "I used to do that when I was little, but my bed isn't very big and—" "I'll take the floor," I say. "I really don't mind," he presses. "I do." It comes out gruffer than I mean it to, but I don't like the idea of sleeping in someone else's bed or smelling them on the sheets when this is my room, or will be. How many decades from now? 6? 7? I'm a long way from home. Okay, well, I have some pajamas for you. He gestures at a striped pair of cotton pants and a matching shirt that is laid out on the comforter. It's fine, I say, already shaking my head. I usually sleep naked. His jaw falls open before it snaps shut again. Even when your friends stay over? Only the ones I really like, I murmur. Daniel stares. Then he starts laughing. I don't feel like joining him, but I do manage a smile because it's a nice sound for such a joyless night. Or maybe that pill I took is kicking in. I'll get changed, I say, grabbing the PJs. My clothes are still damp, my socks especially. I probably tracked mud all over the house. I'll help clean it up tomorrow. The bathroom is second door on the right, I say, before he can finish. I'll be right back. Much like the kitchen, the bathroom had been completely renovated by the time I was born, so it looks different than I expect, but the tub, sink, and toilet are in the same places. I notice a dog-eared science fiction digest next to the toilet. Daniel had a stack of them in his room. The date on the cover is from 2 years ago, 1955, but the paper isn't yellowed or musty from age. I make use of the facilities and then check myself in the mirror, almost relieved that I still look the same. I stand out against the backdrop of pale colors behind me, like somebody photoshopped me into an image of a vintage home. Even when I strip off the muscle shirt, basketball shorts, and my underwear, I still don't fit in. I look like a scrawny kid who is lost and afraid. The pajamas help, mostly because they make me laugh. I've never worn anything like them. I do a little jig in the mirror, my head swimming. The pill is messing with me for sure. I rub a hand over my short-cropped hair, stare into honey-brown eyes that have charmed their fair share of boys, and try to tell myself that it'll all be okay. Except it comes out slurred and sounds more like, it'll be okay. Gathering up the clothes and shoes I arrived in, I stumble down the hall back to my room. His room, whatever. I'm past the point of caring. Daniel is already beneath the sheets, his earnest eyes on me as I enter. He really does have the sweetest face. I shake a finger at him and say, "It's not the first time I imagined you there." He looks confused and maybe a little worried. I shut off the light and make my way to the sleeping bag, struggling with the zipper once I'm inside. I can't get the stupid thing to move an inch. Here. Daniel, still in bed, leans his torso over the edge of the mattress and takes the zipper from me, his fingers brushing against mine. I'm tempted to grab them just for the comfort of being close to another warm body. It always gets stuck, he explains. Thanks for that, I mumble as I hear metal teeth buzzing up one side of the bag. Daniel's sheets rustle as he pulls himself back into his bed. After a beat of silence, he asks, "Are you okay, Reggie?" "Yeah," I reply. "I just want to go home." It's the last thing I manage to say, the last clear thought I have, before the sedative really kicks in, and I drift away on a sea of white noise. Chapter 3. Someone is gently shaking me, the hand on my shoulder causing me to rock back and forth. Sunlight warms my face. I clench my eyes shut, partly because I want to sleep in, but also because the dream I had was so upsetting that I'm scared I'll discover it was real. Reggie? My stomach sinks. I know that voice, but only barely. When I open my eyes, Daniel is squatting next to me. His brown hair has been swept back into a pompadour. He's wearing a collared shirt, light blue with 2 vertical navy stripes running down the front. He smells clean and fresh, his pale green eyes alert, making me think I slept the day away. "What time is it?" I grumble. 7, he replies. You need to get ready for breakfast. Fine. I still need a moment to collect myself and to allow some natural stiffness to subside. When I finally get to my feet, I notice that Daniel is wearing a pair of long beige shorts. He's fully dressed, while in my family we tend to sit around the breakfast table in our bathrobes, or sometimes around the TV if it's the weekend. I guess that's not how they do things here. Daniel starts to explain how the shower works. I wave him into silence and trudge down the hall, relieved when locking the door behind me. I stare for a moment at everything that doesn't look familiar. I guess the sedative is still in my system because I don't feel as upset by it. Only when I'm standing beneath a hissing showerhead does a thought wake me right up. Hannah. I still don't know what happened to her. What if she's also stuck here in the 50s eating breakfast with well-meaning strangers? I have to assume the worst. For her sake. By the time I'm drying myself off, I've decided on a course of action. Daniel is still in his bedroom when I stroll inside. He looks me over before quickly averting his eyes. Sorry, I should have given you something to wear. I'm not naked. I have a towel around my waist. People must be more reserved in this era. Have you seen my clothes? I ask, looking around for them. Mom said that she would wash them, and that I should loan you something. I check out his outfit again. His socks are pulled up so high that they nearly cover his shins, leaving only a few inches of bare skin beneath the long cloth shorts. This should be fun. Let's see what you've got. He opens the closet door, and I come up behind to look over his shoulder. I never realized how colorful the 50s were. I'm spoiled for choice now, not only in terms of hues, but patterns as well. Stripes and checks primarily. Almost every shirt is the same collared style that Daniel is wearing. I notice one that is pale yellow and reach past him to take it. He seems a little flustered when leading me to the dresser. I choose a pair of white shorts and feel thankful that none of my friends have been born yet. I pull on the shirt, intentionally facing him while I do so. Might as well have a few laughs while I'm here. Daniel quickly moves to the window and keeps his back to me. Just as well. I don't have any underwear to put on, and I'm sure as hell not going to borrow a pair from him. I can freeball it for now. With any luck, I won't be here much longer anyway. I say a few seconds later. I like long shorts, I really do, but these might as well be pants. He turns around, expression strained. Then he starts laughing. I'm not sure why, but I can't help doing the same. You need to pull them up, Daniel explains. I already did, I say, lifting the shirt so he can see. It's not like they're hanging off my hips. I figured that would be too risque. But even pulled up, the white fabric touches my shins. Daniel's eyes keep darting to my waistline and away again, like he's torn between politeness and modesty. Bare skin seems to make him uncomfortable. You have to pull them up higher. I glance down at myself. No way. Really? Show me yours, I say, nodding at his shorts, which cover half his kneecaps. Oh. His face turns bright red. Then he uses both hands to lift his shirt. I eye the milky white skin of his stomach, wondering where his belly button is, when I realize that it's covered by the beige fabric of his shorts. He wasn't kidding. I wince in anticipation as I grab my shorts and hoist them higher. But the crotch doesn't ram into my junk like I feared, although I do wish I had a pair of underwear to keep things situated. How do you sit down with these things on? You don't have shorts like this in Alabama? You saw what I was wearing yesterday, I reply. He's still staring at my waist, so I release the shorts, which slowly begin to descend. I'll get you a belt, he says quickly. I thought we were the same size. You must be a little bigger than me, I murmur. We'll have to compare sometime. His hands are trembling when he hands me a white belt. The poor kid is going to have nightmares long after I'm gone. I'll be having a few fantasies, but only if I make it home again. That sobers me up. I can flirt with straight guys when I'm back in my own time and once I've made sure Hannah is safe. He loans me a pair of knee-high socks, making more faces and noises when I leave them scrunched up around my ankles. I'm given a pair of soft slip-on shoes that match his own, which I'm guessing are for indoor use only. Then I follow him downstairs to the breakfast table. Dr. Parker is already seated and reading a printed newspaper. 2 little girls are next to him, chatting excitedly until they see me. Then they fall silent and stare. I smile broadly at them, causing them to blush and giggle. Daniel leads me to a chair and goes to help his mother, who is working at the stove. An impressive spread is on the table. Glasses of orange juice, grapefruit sliced in half, milk, toast, jelly, and a steaming bowl of scrambled eggs. "How did you sleep last night?" Dr. Parker asks me. "Like a dream," I say. "I got a new puppy in mine," one of the girls says to me, "but then its head fell off." "Drink your milk, Lizzie," Mrs. Parker says as she serves freshly fried bacon onto my plate. "Thank you," I say, my appetite kicking in. "It's nothing." Mrs. Parker places a hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry for reacting the way I did last night." "I barged into your house," I reply, eager to make peace. "You should have hit me with that frying pan. I would have deserved it." The girls laugh at this. Daniel sets a butter tray on the table before sitting next to me. I don't touch my food yet, unsure how families go about breakfast in the 50s. Maybe they pray first, or wait for the father to take a bite. If there's any sort of ritual, I don't notice it. Soon we're all eating, which I like, and talking, which gets tricky. "George mentioned that you're from Alabama," Mrs. Parker says to me. "Which part?" "Montgomery." "Oh, were you involved in... How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?" 18. This seems to please her. "The same age as Danny. It's a shame you didn't move here sooner. You could have gone to school together." "Have you graduated already?" I ask him. "Next week," he says after a swig of juice. "I guess you already did if you were able to come up here." "Yeah," I say. "School gets out a little earlier in Alabama." "Why don't you have an accent?" Mrs. Parker asks. "I love how it makes everything sound so charming." "Let the poor boy eat," Dr. Parker interjects. "I don't mind," I say. But I also make sure to keep my mouth full so I don't have to answer more questions. Daniel and his father seem to be in a hurry, too. The 2 sisters fill most of the silence, chatting excitedly about their weekend plans, which involve swimming in the lake. Daniel finishes eating first. "Dad is letting me borrow the car," he says. "After we drop him off at work, I can drive you over to see Gloria." "That would be great," I say, already beginning to panic. This doesn't mesh with my plan. "Do you need to call your mother to let her know that you've arrived safely?" Mrs. Parker asks. "I'll do that from Gloria's place. That way my mom can talk to everyone there. But thank you." I follow Daniel's lead as the meal comes to an end. He gets up to help clear the table before his mother shoos him away. I'm relieved to be given back my Nikes, especially when I see the loafers Daniel slips on that have leather tassels hanging off them. So hokey. My stomach sinks when we go outside to the back of the house and I don't see what I expect to. Not only is the garage separate, but there's only enough room for 1 car. In my day, the garage has room for 3 vehicles and is attached directly to the house. That must have been added later. More evidence that I really am in the past. My spirits soar again when the garage door opens, revealing a gorgeous classic car. Holy shit, I say before clamping a hand over my mouth. Daniel grins. She's a real beauty, isn't she? We watch as Dr. Parker backs the vehicle out. It looks more like a boat, impossibly long with two taillights reminiscent of fins. The white trunk matches the convertible top, the rest of the car's rectangular body covered in sparkling aqua paint. Raised headlights point in our direction as the vehicle swerves around. I'm in love, I breathe. You'll have to get in line, Daniel retorts as he walks toward it. He opens the passenger side door for me, which seems excessively chivalrous, until I realize it's the only way for me to climb in the back. I do so eagerly. There's no reason Daniel can't take the passenger seat up front, but he gets in next to me anyway. Dr. Parker arches his eyebrow at this in the rearview mirror. Then he focuses on navigating the driveway so we can turn onto the street. I know this is a Chevy, I say, but what kind? A Bel Air? That's right, Dr. Parker replies. I bought it as a birthday present to myself a couple of years back. A 55 to celebrate my 50th. Happy belated birthday, I say, running my hands along the vinyl bench seat that matches the dual-tone exterior. This car would also make a great graduation present, Daniel says with transparent hope. Not a chance, Dr. Parker responds with a dry chuckle. I turn my attention to the outside world as he drives us through downtown Glen Ellen, which is small, quaint, and resembles a bygone era, even in my day. So while it doesn't look so different as we cruise down Main Street, it's difficult to explain away how so many of the business signs could have changed, why everyone is dressed oddly, and where all the classic cars came from. Few are as ostentatious as a turquoise Chevy Bel Air, but none of them look anything like a Honda Civic, that's for sure. Dr. Parker's office is just off Hillside Avenue. He parks outside and turns around in the seat to face his son. You'll be here at 4 o'clock sharp to pick me up. My last appointment is with Ralph Higgins, and you know how his mother likes to talk my ear off, or anyone who will listen. I'll be here right on time, Dad, Daniel promises. Good boy. Don't drive anywhere that isn't necessary. He addresses me next. Say hello to Errol and Harriet. I nod automatically, which is good, because it takes a second to realize that he's talking about my great-grandparents. Thank you for taking me in last night. No trouble at all. I think you'll enjoy living in the area. We pride ourselves on being progressive thinkers. Dr. Parker checks his watch and excuses himself. A moment later, I'm standing outside the car with his son. Do you need anything while we're downtown? Daniel asks. Sort of, I say, licking my lips nervously. I hope he's not so square as to do everything his parents tell him. If so, I can walk, but I'd rather have company. I need you to take me to Churchill Woods. I left my things out there last night. How come? He asks. I'm not sure which aspect he's confused about, and I don't care. Now that there aren't any authority figures around to hold me back, I'm eager to get going. I want to figure out what happened to Hannah, and I want to go home, in that order. I'll explain on the way, I tell him. Okay, but let's put the top down. It's powered. Daniel opens the driver's side door and pushes a button. Then we stand back and watch as the white roof accordions and stows behind the rear seat. How nifty is that? Daniel says, grinning at me. I smile too, mostly because of his word choice. He's a cute guy. I always thought so when staring at his photo. I didn't always understand why I was so drawn to it, but after I came out, I recognized it as one of the many telltale signs that made me realize I'm into guys. It's fun seeing him like this, so animated and full of color. When we find my phone, I'll record a video to show Grandma. She'll never believe it. I'm still struggling with that myself. But as the car pulls out and Daniel turns on the radio, doo-wop serenading our ride down Main Street, I sure feel like I've been transported to another era. The sky is blue, the sun shining with the same sort of optimism that seems to hang in the air. People smile at each other, stop to talk on street corners, and a few even wave when recognizing who is behind the wheel. Like a scene out of a movie. Turn left here, I say. Daniel looks surprised, but complies. I thought you wanted to... Just a slight detour. I want to know for sure. It's one thing to redecorate a few blocks downtown to have a more historic vibe, or to speed renovate the house I live in, but even these unlikely feats would have limits. I urge Daniel to drive away from Glen Ellen. Eventually, I ask him to pull over. He does, and I stare at a field of crops where there should be houses. My friend Carlos lived in one before his family moved. I slept over there more nights than I can count. I know where I am and where he lived, but it's all gone, or has yet to exist. Is my driving making you nauseous? Daniel asks me. No. I turn to look at him again and accept the truth. I'm in the past, standing next to the guy who used to date my grandma. This isn't a dream, or a TV show, or a prank. It's all real. Not only have I drunk the Kool-Aid, I've guzzled the whole damn pitcher. I just wanted to see something familiar. Daniel glances beyond me to the field. Did you live on a farm in Alabama? That works. Yeah, it was a lot more rural there. I'd like to see it, he says. Maybe we can drive down there together when you return for a visit. Sure, I say, hoping that I'll be long gone before that can happen. Let's keep going. No more detours. On the way to the woods, I try to take in every detail of my surroundings, realizing that I'm unlikely to ever have this opportunity again. I should make the most of it and let myself be a tourist in the past before trying to get home. And maybe I would, if not for Hannah. What were you doing out here last night? Daniel asks as we pull into the parking lot of Churchill Woods. I'm tired of lying. Soon there won't be any point. You'd never believe me, I reply. What if I promised to? I ignore him and get out of the car. Daniel does the same, not giving up so easily. Where did you leave your things? And why? That's a topic I'm willing to discuss as we walk down the path leading to the river. There was a creepy guy out here. He scared the hell out of me, so I ran off. Any idea who he might be? Daniel shakes his head. Did he attack you? I'm not sure. I was yelling for my friend, and he came up behind me. Your friend? I reply with a question of my own. You know the stone gate that's out here? The archway? Yeah, exactly. What do you know about it? He's silent for a moment as we walk. I know that it doesn't make sense. How so? He chews his bottom lip before answering. Well, if it used to be part of a larger structure, where would it have fit? The river is on one side of the archway, so there wouldn't be room to build anything there. On the other side, the trees are too old. I furrow my brow, not understanding. What do you mean? They would have needed to cut down trees to make room for even a small house. But there's no sign of that. Unless something stood there before the settlers came, which can't be right. The Indians didn't build with stone. Native Americans, I say automatically. Huh? Oh, they were only called Indians because Columbus thought he had landed in India, so in Alabama we use Native Americans instead. I clamp my mouth shut and wonder if I'm making history. Daniel might spend the rest of his life enlightening others while spreading the new term around. That doesn't sound like such a bad thing unless I return to an alternate present and discover that Biff Tannen owns the town and married my mother. I should probably say as little as possible from here on out. As we're crossing the bridge together, Daniel stops in the middle. "Look how high the river has swelled," he says. "How long did it rain before I got here?" I ask. "A few days." "The same as back home." My gaze rises to the trees we're about to enter. "It's going to be muddy. You don't have to come with me." "I want to," he insists. I'm grateful, unsure of what I'll discover, but compelled to find out. I resume walking with renewed determination, Daniel hurrying to catch up with me. "Gloria has to work today," he says quickly. "I thought we could meet her for lunch. Afterwards, we could go shopping or catch a matinee. I'm sure my dad will let me give you a ride home with her once he's off work. How does that sound?" He finishes with a gasp, like he forgot to breathe. They really need to let him out of the house more often. Then again, considering that the internet doesn't exist, I'm probably the latest and most exciting news. A mysterious stranger in weird clothes all the way from politically correct Alabama. Just wait until I disappear in front of his very eyes. Sounds like a real gas, I say, hoping I got the usage right. Daniel smiles as if thrilled. I nod toward the shadowy interior of the woods as we walk beneath the canopy of leaves. Keep an eye out in case that creepy guy is still around. Daniel gets in front of me protectively, or as it turns out, for an equally noble but much nerdier reason. "I earned the merit badge for tracking on my first try." "That's right," I say. "You're a Boy Scout." "Yeah." Daniel squats to check a print. "As of last year, I'm an Eagle Scout." "That's the highest rank?" "Sure is. Lift up your shoe, please." I show him the bottom of it, and he nods as if satisfied. "This is the way you came last night." I could have told him that, but I pretend to be impressed anyway. "Any sign that someone was chasing me?" I ask as we keep walking. He shakes his head. "Not so far." "You don't see anyone else out here?" I press, thinking of Hannah. "No, you mentioned a friend. Is that who you're looking for?" He's a sharp one. "Yeah, it's a girl, if that helps." "Did she come with you from Alabama?" I've always been a relatively honest person, and this is why. Trying to balance so many lies isn't worth the effort. "She's another of my pen pals." "Oh." He sounds disappointed, maybe even disapproving. "Are you going steady?" I snort before I catch myself. "No, nothing like that." He glances over his shoulder, his forehead crinkling. "Then why were you out here together? At night?" Damn. I should have used the excuse that he provided. "I guess it's not too late. You don't have to go steady with a girl to spend time alone with her." He doesn't say anything else until the land begins to rise and we pass through more trees. "Look at this." Daniel hunkers down near the ground. "A boot print." "Oh yeah?" I barely even glance at it. The gate has come into view. I move past Daniel, walking so fast that I'm on the verge of breaking into a run. Compared to how I saw it last, the gate is pristine. The spray paint is gone, the gray stones speckled with moss, revealing the worn, craggy surface I knew when younger. The gate hasn't begun to lean yet, which is encouraging. I can only assume it brought me here. I want it in good shape so it can take me back. The closer I get, the more I feel a buzzing inside, and it's not just excitement. I place a hand on one of the pillars, my palm vibrating. It never did that when I was a kid. I'm ready to rush through it and return home. Only one concern stops me from doing so. I turn around to face Daniel, who is still checking the ground every few feet. "Do you see footprints from anyone else?" I ask. "My friend wasn't wearing boots. Those must belong to the man I saw. Is there a third set of tracks? Not so far. Keep looking, please. I turn around and consider the gate. I feel as though it's beckoning to me, like it also wants me to return to my rightful place. I think that's it, Daniel says, standing upright and brushing himself off. There were only 2 of you out here last night, aside from a few deer. You're sure? I ask while moving toward him. I stop after a few steps, noticing how the buzzing inside of me decreases the more I distance myself from the gate. Daniel walks over to join me. As sure as I can be, yeah. I don't see any luggage, though. Where did you leave it? At the base of a tree. I make a half-hearted effort to find my backpack. Chances are everything got soaked and ruined anyway. The weirdo in the woods must have taken it. Hopefully he won't reverse engineer my phone and start a company called Skynet. If so, I'll willingly battle Terminator robots in the future. I'm done with the past. It's time to go home. This is where we part ways, I say to Daniel. Thank your family for their hospitality. I appreciate your help and the clothes. I'd give them back, but I don't want to be naked when I get home. He shakes his head in confusion. You're going back to Alabama? Not quite. Listen, you seem like a nice guy, so, let's see. Don't let them send you to Vietnam, no matter what. Practice safe sex in the early 80s, stay away from the Twin Towers in 2001, and invest in Apple when that becomes a thing. Best of luck. His expression has shifted to concern. Soon it will turn to surprise. I approach the gate, the vibration building inside of me. This intensifies to a buzz as I walk through the center, the frequency reaching a crescendo, and then diminishing again as I pass through to the other side. I spin around, expecting to see crumbled ruins and a chain-link fence. The scene hasn't changed. Daniel looks even more perplexed now. I would have preferred to disappear in style, but I'm not giving up yet. I was pushed through the gate from the opposite side, where he's standing now. You don't leave a building by walking through the door in the same direction you arrived in. That must be it. I walk through the gate again, slowly and deliberately, focusing on the humming inside of me while willing myself to return home. I even close my eyes when passing directly beneath the arch, where the sensation becomes the most intense. Just like before, the buzzing fades as I keep walking. Reggie? Daniel starts to say. Give me a second, I snap. There must be some trick that I'm missing. Hannah pushed me. I fell back. Is that it? I walk backwards through the gate, and when that doesn't work, I try standing still beneath it. The vibration never ceases, but I also don't end up anywhere. How come? And for that matter, why did I travel through time at all? I've walked through this gate before when younger, sat beneath it, leaned against the pillars, and all manner of interaction without anything unexpected happening. So have countless others. None of my classmates went missing. The legends surrounding the gate have nothing to do with it being a doorway to the past. Only when it was falling apart did I... The cold tingle of dread races up my spine. The gate is no longer complete in the present day. I saw the top of it break off and almost crush me, the pillars already listing dangerously. Whatever remains now must be in ruins, which means there isn't a gate in the future for me to return through. Reggie? Daniel says again, sounding more insistent. I'd nearly forgotten he was there. Yeah. My dad is worried that you've been through some sort of trauma, like what happens to soldiers when they come back from war. I'm not crazy, I say, tearing my eyes from the gate to look at him. After a swallow, he continues, A lot of the things you say don't make sense. They do to me. Then tell me again why you were out here last night, or what you think you're doing now. I'm not crazy, I say through gritted teeth. Come here. He doesn't budge, so I step forward and grab his wrist. I'm not going to hurt you. Put your hand here. I place it against one of the stone columns. I press my palm against it too, and feel the stone vibrating. The sensation reminds me of a field trip to a farm that had an electric fence. I pressed myself against it when dared to and felt the hum of electricity through my clothes. My eyes are locked onto Daniel's as I search for any sign of recognition or surprise. Instead, he looks even more concerned. Nothing? I ask in disbelief. Here. I place his hand over mine, thinking the gate is reacting to me and that he'll be able to feel it that way. When his expression remains blank, I growl in frustration, take his hand, and pull him toward the center of the gate where the vibrations are the most intense. I place his hand over my chest, holding it there with my own, and plead with my expression. I need him to confirm what I'm experiencing. Don't you feel that? The air is coming out his nostrils in bursts, his eyes wide, before he croaks out, I feel your heart. I stare into his pale green eyes and know that he's being honest. Then I let go of his hand, which drops to his side. I'm so frustrated that I'm on the verge of tears. I'm worried about you, Daniel says, no longer able to make eye contact. I get it, I say. I know how nutty I must seem, how strange the things I say must sound. But you'd never believe the truth. I barely can, and I'm standing right here. I need proof. My backpack. We just need to find it. I'll show you my phone and... That sounds crazy, right? Why would someone have a phone in their backpack? Wait, do you even know what that is? Do you only use messenger bags or something? How do you carry books to school? In a satchel, Daniel says. I snap my fingers. That's what I'm looking for. A satchel that goes over your shoulders. Like a rucksack? Yes! I must seem like a raving lunatic, but good old Daniel leaps into action with me. We search behind every tree and even look higher up in case my memory is wrong and it's hanging from a branch instead. Nothing. I kick at piles of leaves, grope around inside of bushes, and even try standing still while pivoting to scan my surroundings. But I don't see my backpack anywhere. The creep in the woods must have run off with it. Where do the boot prints lead? I ask Daniel. Can you follow them? Maybe. I quickly decide that the merit badge was well deserved. Daniel tracks the footprints to another path, which leads us down to the riverbank and along it before disappearing entirely. What does that mean? I ask. That he walked into the water? Possibly, Daniel says. It's a good way to stop anyone from following you. He shields his eyes and considers the sky. Or maybe his trail got washed away because we're no longer beneath the trees. Can you find it again? Farther down, maybe? He humors me, but even I can see that it's hopeless. We walk all the way back to the bridge without finding another trace of booted footprints. There's something else you should know, Daniel says to me. What? My dad says you can have a psychotic incident without realizing it. So you might think that you're making sense? Don't try to gaslight me. Huh? Everything I say makes sense where I come from. I promise. The only trauma I experienced was waking up here last night. Which you still haven't explained, Daniel huffs. You were out necking with a local girl? I shake my head. No, not exactly. Then what? Tell me. He sounds angry. Who could blame him? The honest truth won't make him think I'm any less crazy, but I try regardless, being selective with how much I reveal. Yesterday afternoon, I was hanging out by the gate with my friend. I lost consciousness, and when I woke up, it was night, and she was gone. Were you drinking? Stone cold sober. Oh. He thinks about it, and it's a shame he's not dumb, because he comes up with a valid question. Why did you say all those strange things before walking back and forth through the gate just now? Because I was trying to figure out how I got into this mess. His forehead crinkles again. I think you should tell all of this to my dad. He can help you. By doping me up in a mental institution, most likely. I can't think of a lie convoluted enough to explain my behavior to either of them. At this point, I'm better off trying to figure it out alone. Daniel will never let me stay out here on my own, though. He'll return with his father in tow, or maybe some burly men from the local insane asylum. Time to do damage control. I'll talk to your dad tonight, I say, and I'll listen to what he has to say. Daniel still looks concerned. Can we please head back into town? Of course. I'll hang out with him for the day, and in the evening, tell Dr. Parker that I've decided to return home. Then I'll find a way of actually doing so. Alone. Chapter 4. Back in my own time, the gate is broken. I think of this obsessively as Daniel and I walk down Main Street. When popping into the occasional store, I'm momentarily distracted by all the products I don't recognize, or the old-fashioned labels of the things I do. But it isn't long before my mind begins racing again. There must be a solution. If I could get someone in my time to rebuild the gate, then I should be able to return through it again. But how? I'm going to buy this for Gloria, Daniel says from next to me. She loves Zagnut bars. I know. I murmur without thinking. They're tough to find. Not in Illinois, they aren't, Daniel replies. We're standing in the old bank building on Main Street, which is occupied by a handful of boutique shops in my day. Right now, the space is dominated by a Walgreens pharmacy, although with features that I'm not used to. A counter lined with stools fills one wall, large letters above this advertising it as a soda fountain and dinette. I can't help but think of the Greensboro sit-ins, started by 4 brave black men who were denied service at a similar lunch counter. They refused to leave, inspiring others to do the same, and it worked. The racist company policies were dropped, eventually. That won't happen for a few years yet. I remember the photos of peaceful protesters sitting on their stools, while surrounded by an angry mob who poured sugar and ketchup over their heads, blew smoke in their faces, or burned them with cigarettes, and wonder if the same would happen to me if I tried eating here. You could always mail a few home, Daniel continues, a candy bar in each hand. If only it were that easy. I'd send a message to my family telling them to rebuild the gate so I could return. Hey, that's not such a bad idea. If I bury instructions in a time capsule now, and someone in the future digs it up, they'll think I'm crazy. Hannah might believe me, depending on what she saw when I vanished. How could I get a message to her specifically? Up to you, Daniel says, putting a candy bar back. I'm buying this one for Gloria. That's it. My grandma knows Hannah. All my friends love Granny Gloria. She could give Hannah a message for me. I'll make her promise not to deliver it until the day after my disappearance. Damn. I hadn't thought of it in those terms yet. Back in 2022, I'm a missing person. But not for long. I only need to convince my grandmother of today to hold on to a mysterious letter for the next 60-odd years. How much longer until lunch? I ask eagerly. We'll surprise her at work now, Daniel says. I'm hungry too. First, we have to check out. The cash register is a huge mechanical beast covered in numbered buttons. The girl working the machine has to push down on them to manually enter the price instead of scanning a barcode. A single candy bar doesn't require much effort, but I'd hate to see someone check out an entire shopping cart of groceries that way. We leave the car where Daniel parked it, walking a few blocks down to Henderson's dry cleaning. I once again used the time to think, but not of a cover story. That won't get me anywhere. Not if I want their help. "Daniel," the woman behind the counter says, already beaming at him. "Did you come here for clothes or company?" "Company," he says sheepishly. "I should have known. Gloria!" My pulse picks up in anticipation. At the back of the shop, a woman my age stands up from a sewing machine and turns around. Her hair is short and curled, her body slender and covered in what looks like a lavender sleeveless jumpsuit with the legs cut off just below the knees. Her right eyebrow is arched higher than the other, giving the impression that she's amused by some inside joke that only she knows. Her dark, sparkling eyes and wide smile are unmistakable as she notices Daniel. She's young, she's pretty, and she's my grandma. "Don't be too long," the woman behind the counter says. "I won't, Mrs. Henderson," Gloria responds politely. She practically pushes Daniel out the door, sparing only a puzzled glance for me. "You saved my life," Gloria says once we're on the sidewalk. "I was sweating up a storm in there." "Doesn't matter," I say. "All it does is make you glow. You're so beautiful." She looks me over before returning her attention to Daniel. "Who's this fool? And why is he wearing your clothes?" "Observant. My mom always said I got my smarts from her." "He's your cousin," Daniel says before I can stop him. "Reggie." "My what?" Gloria takes another look at me, focusing on my face, and it's almost like she recognizes me. Or not. "He's no cousin of mine." "She's right," I say before Daniel can protest. "But we are family." I hold out my hand to her. "You won't believe how excited I am to see you again."
"Again?"
"Yeah," I say with a dopey grin. I'm starting to enjoy myself, although it's been around 6 or 7 decades. I nod at Daniel. He thinks I'm crazy. Maybe I am, but I have a hell of a story to tell you both anyway.
"I bet you do,"
Gloria says, taking Daniel's arm on the side farthest from me as she begins to lead him down the street.
"I'm willing to listen to any old nonsense as long as I get a bite to eat."
God, I love my grandma.
"What's this all about?"
I hear her ask Daniel.
"I don't even know anymore,"
comes his weary response. "I'll explain everything," I interject. "I promise." We cross the street to a corner diner. I can tell Daniel isn't happy with me. When he looks in my direction, the normally earnest eyes are guarded instead. No wonder. I've just admitted that I've been lying to him. He's probably debating if he should call his dad or the police, but I can still make this right. I have to. The inside of the restaurant is familiar to me, only because I've been to plenty of 50s-themed diners. The real deal is a bit more toned down. They, too, have the classic counter with stools and a jukebox, but the floor is covered in small tiles instead of black and white checks, and there aren't as many neon signs incorporated into the deco. The pink padded booths more than make up for this. We slide into one, the Greensboro protesters still on my mind, but Gloria seems comfortable here, so I'm guessing we'll be fine. I barely glance at the menu, hastily ordering a burger and fries so the waitress will go away. I want to clear the air. When I finally have the chance and 2 pairs of eyes are staring at me from across the table, well, it's not easy to get the words out, but I manage anyway. My name is Reggie Valentine, and I come from the future. I've told them everything, the entire sequence of events that led me to a sticky table diner in the 1950s. I lean back and take a sip of cherry cola while assessing their reactions. Daniel's brow is knotted up, like he's still trying to put all the pieces together. Gloria has both eyebrows raised and is looking at me like I'm unhinged.
I'm still waiting for the part that proves you aren't crazy, she says.
I don't blame you. I can hardly believe it either.
Because it's not possible,
Daniel grumbles. He almost seems angry at himself, like he feels foolish for humoring me or for helping someone so deceptive. I'm not sure, but I do feel the need to make things right between us. If we can find my backpack, you'll have all the proof you need. Wait until you see my phone. It's more like a TV screen, really, and a camera. It'll blow your mind.
Right.
Gloria sucks long and hard on a straw while scrutinizing me. I'm reminded of the time my brothers and I flooded the downstairs bathroom by stopping up all the drains. My grandma was the only adult at home and asked who was responsible. Yours truly, unfortunately. I wanted a swimming pool. My older brothers wanted to see me get in trouble. And she figured all of that out. I was grounded for being an idiot, and my brothers were punished for not being better role models.
You must have something from the future on you, she says. Money?
No. Speaking of which, I can't afford to pay for my lunch. Daniel glares at the table like he's trying to burn a hole through the surface.
What about your clothes? Gloria asks. Did you show up naked on Daniel's doorstep?
You're a seamstress, I say in excitement. My grandmother is a skilled dressmaker. I even have a few custom shirts made by her hanging in my closet. It's no casual interest. She mastered her trade as an adult. I hope she knew her stuff when younger, too. The outfit I was wearing is at Daniel's place, but I stick my legs out in the aisle, tearing at the laces of my right shoe before slipping it off and setting it on the table in front of her, chunks of dried mud scattering across the surface. She picks up the shoe without hesitation and brushes off even more dirt. Daniel's face turns red as he sinks further down in his seat. We've attracted a few stares, but they barely register with me. I'm used to people watching my every move when I shop or do anything else. I'm sure Gloria is too. She's focused on examining the shoe. Despite the wear the last couple days have put on them, they still pop. The top of the shoe is a lightweight mesh fabric covered by ribs of shiny black plastic. The thick rubber soles have clear windows toward the bottom, showing off the orange and red springs inside. Plastic badges are fitted into the tongue, the bottom, and the back of the shoe, each asserting various trademarked terms intended to impress consumers.
Very unusual, she admits. Where did you buy these?
Check the label, I suggest.
Made in Vietnam, she reads.
I bought them down the street. After some hasty mental arithmetic, I add, about 60 years from now.
I don't even know where to begin with these,
Gloria says. She passes the shoe to Daniel.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
He takes it, cheeks still red as he turns the shoe over in his hand. When he glances up again, he almost seems hopeful.
No.
His outfit was kind of strange, too. What are all these numbers and lines? He's referring to the tag stitched onto the shoe's tongue. After he hands it back to me, I do my best to explain. The top row is what the shoe size would be in different countries. The lines at the bottom are a barcode, which is a sort of price sticker. I don't know what some of these other numbers mean, but I can't help but grin, turning the label so they can see. This right here? It's the date of manufacture. Not many shoe companies include that. Nike does.
3/16/22,
Daniel reads aloud. He looks to Gloria in shock.
That doesn't prove anything, she says, but you've got my attention. If you're from the future, tell us something that's about to happen.
I think about it while putting my shoe back on.
I can come up with a major event like the moon landing. What? Daniel says, sounding excited. Really? We travel to the moon? Yeah, but that's in the 60s. Toward the end. I can't wait a decade for you to believe me. I need your help now. What's going to happen this year? Gloria presses. I shake my head. What happened 60 years ago today? Do you know? Because that's what you're asking me to do. They look at each other and come up empty. Why do you live in my house in the future? Daniel asks. I honestly don't know. My eyes move to Gloria. But we both do. You live in the downstairs bedroom just off the sunroom. Daniel narrows his eyes. We don't have a sunroom. Not yet, Gloria says. What else? I know that you two used to date. Daniel turns bright red. Gloria laughs. We never talk about that to anyone. You must still be close because you have a framed photo of him in your room. This makes her cackle. Daniel covers his face and groans. This has been fun, Gloria says as she stands, but I have to get back to work. Daniel pays by leaving cash on the table, which seems careless, but nobody seems to mind as we go. I'm feeling increasingly desperate as we cross the street again, not having gotten myself any closer to a solution. Even if you don't believe me, I say, walking next to Gloria, would you be willing to give someone a letter 6 decades from now? If they repair the gate, I might be able to go home. Sure, why not? Gloria turns around to face me when we reach the sidewalk. What are you going to do with yourself until then? I shake my head, not understanding. If I give your friend this note, she explains, it'll take time to get the gate patched up. Or do you have robots who can build things lickety-split? I wish. She's right. Even after Hannah reads the letter, she'll still need time to convince others to rebuild the gate. Until she succeeds, I'll be stranded here. It might take a few weeks, I'm not sure. Gloria turns to Daniel. Think your family would be willing to take him in? Maybe. I'm supposed to be dropping him off so he can live with your family. Oh, yeah, Gloria says, perking up. You didn't explain that part. You said that we're family. We even live together. I nod while biting my bottom lip. I intentionally avoided the subject because I felt it was too much to swallow. 60 years from now, Gloria says musingly. What's that make you? My grandfather? You've, got it reversed, I say. You'll be older than me by then, remember? Oh, right. So that means... She clamps her mouth shut, then her eyes narrow. No. Happens to the best of us, I say. What? Daniel asks, not having caught on. Oh, nothing, I say casually, aside from the fact that you used to date my grandma. She cackles again. Daniel seems disturbed by the thought. Gloria says, looking me over again. You sure remind me of my Uncle Jack. I might just believe you. Really? I hug her spontaneously, the sensation oddly familiar, for one of us anyway. Gloria is grinning when I release her. I said might. At least you've given me something to think about while I work. Any chance y'all can meet me afterwards? I think so, Daniel says, especially when Dad finds out that he's still with me. Good. I'll see you both then. She smiles demurely before returning to the dry cleaner. Wait, Daniel says, pulling a Zagnut bar from his pocket. It's too late. She doesn't hear him. The candy bar is sagging noticeably anyway. It's totally melted, I say, swiping it from him, and I'm still hungry.
But don't worry, we can get a fresh one for your girlfriend before we pick her up. She's not my girlfriend, Daniel mumbles. How come? She's a stone-cold fox. If she wasn't my granny... I nudge him playfully and get a reluctant smile. Hey, man, I say as we walk down the street together. I'm sorry for lying to you, really. You've been so nice to me. I'll make it up to you somehow. How about a bite? I poke the partially unwrapped candy bar at his face, the chocolate dripping down my fingers. Stop, he says, laughing as he dodges. This is how people apologize in the future. You have to eat it. But I paid for it. I take a bite. And that makes it taste even sweeter. Try it. I chase him down the sidewalk, the candy bar held out before me like a knife. By the time he slams into the Chevy Bel Air and leans against it, we're both panting. But I'm not done. Eat it, I insist. Absolve me of my guilt. He laughs again and finally complies. I feed him a bite, his pale green eyes surprisingly vulnerable as they stare into mine. His delicate lips have melted chocolate on them as he chews. I try to imagine how good it would taste to kiss them. I break the tension by leaning against the car next to him and wonder what else the day will bring. So far, I've not only met my grandmother when she was my age, but I've also discovered that we share the same taste in men. We return to Daniel's house to get refreshed and to pick up my outfit from yesterday so Gloria can inspect it. Mrs. Parker looks distraught when meeting us in the entryway. I'm so sorry, she says when presenting me with a neatly folded pile. My shirt is fine, but the shorts have a dark triangular mark on them and smell like burnt plastic. I didn't realize they were gym shorts, Mrs. Parker explains. The material is so strange. The second I put the iron on them... She shakes her head as if unable to continue. I'm trying not to laugh. Who irons shorts? Or a tank top? It's totally fine, I say. Nobody wears this style here, I've noticed, so I wasn't planning to either. You simply must let me replace them, Mrs. Parker insists while handing me a $10 bill. Lunch for the three of us had cost around half that much, so I figure it's more than enough. Thank you, but I can't accept this, especially after the hospitality you've shown me. I insist, she says, holding up a palm when I try to hand the money back. And for goodness sake, please call me Melody. That's a beautiful name. It's poorly chosen, she replies with a titter. I don't have a musical bone in my body. Her appearance is surprisingly neat for someone burdened with housework and childcare all day. She shares the same delicate features as her son, including the pale green eyes and light brown hair. Judging from the narrow waist, she hasn't eaten a solid meal in ages. Everyone can sing, I reply. It just takes a little practice. Oh, I'm hopeless. Mrs. Parker gestures for us to follow her. What about you? I play the piano, I explain. I intend to make a career of it. Really? I keep reminding George that the girls need to learn an instrument before they get much older. Do you teach by chance? I do. Only for the past couple of years, at first because I wanted to add it to my credentials. As it turns out, I enjoy sharing my enthusiasm with younger students. Most of them have no love for the piano, forced to learn it by their parents, but a few have shown genuine interest and potential. Back home, at least. I don't have a piano with me. I knew I forgot to pack something. Oh, darn, she says with a smile. Mrs. Parker leads us to the kitchen and pours us each a glass of Kool-Aid from an ice-filled pitcher. I've only ever seen that done in commercials. She has the serving tray and everything. How did the visit with your family go? She asks.
We surprised Gloria for lunch, Daniel interjects. She was surprised. I bet. When do you get to see the rest of your family? Tonight, I say, relieved that I don't need to lie to her. They really are my blood relatives. Won't that be nice? Mrs. Parker says pleasantly. I don't suppose you boys are in the mood to go swimming before then? No, Daniel blurts out before clearing his throat. We just ate. It wouldn't be safe. It's just that your sisters want to continue swimming, his mother presses, and I still have so much to do. We can watch them, I say, nudging Daniel. Can't we? His mother's face lights up. Oh, would you? That would be wonderful. Daniel glowers at me as soon as her back is turned, and I take pleasure in it, thinking of all the times my older brothers were roped into babysitting me. Before long, we're in the park across the street, sitting on a bench while watching his sisters swim. I brought the freshly ironed clothes with me and passed them to Daniel so he can check them out. They don't make as big an impression as my shoes, which is probably why he asks to see those again instead. I decide to take them off, along with the scratchy socks he loaned me, so I can feel the cool grass beneath my feet. Daniel takes one of the shoes to examine it, and when he thinks I'm not paying attention, scratches at the date on the label like I might have written it on. Fair enough. I'd nearly convinced myself that I was having my own Truman Show experience before I finally accepted the truth. Want to try them on? I ask. Really? Daniel glances over at me in excitement. Think they'll fit? I place my bare foot next to his loafer. We're about the same size. Go for it. I witness a parade of cute expressions as he puts them on, ranging from surprise to puzzlement. When he has the shoes tied and stands up, he bounces on his heels a few times before laughing. They're so squishy, he says. Comfortable, I correct, especially compared to yours, I bet. Can I try them, actually? Sure, he says. I do my own experimental stepping once I've slipped the loafers on. They're comfortable in their own way, but I can already tell they don't breathe as much, and I'm still not into the leather tassels hanging on each. Why are they so strange? Daniel asks me while staring at his feet. I was having similar thoughts, I murmur. The pair you have on are made for athletes. I don't fit the description, but my oldest brother does. He got me turned on to that brand, although lots of people wear them, even if they don't like sports. Hell, most of them don't even go for walks. Shoes are more like status symbols. That's ridiculous. I agree. As to your question, the reason they look so weird is because they're designed to make you run faster. So they work? I don't know. Want to find out? I grin at him and hunker down in the classic starting line pose. He's familiar with it. Daniel joins me at my side and matches my posture. When do we start? He asks. Now. I take off running without warning, already laughing because his shoes are floppy by comparison. I still manage to maintain my lead until I reach a tree. And back again, I shout, launching myself off it. The filthy cheater turns around when he sees me coming instead of continuing to the tree. I cry foul and pump my arms harder, but he's got this one. Daniel makes it back to the bench ahead of me, and I'm left jogging toward his victorious smile. Did you feel any faster? I pant. Not really, he replies. It's an honest answer. I never felt faster in them either, I admit. All the commotion has attracted the attention of the girls, who wade out of the water to join us. What are you doing? Asks Sarah, the oldest girl. Running from a ghost, I exclaim theatrically. A ghost? Lizzie asks, her tiny face worried. Yeah, he was dressed like a pirate captain. He kept talking about buried treasure and how to find it. The girls look at each other with shining eyes. Treasure? they say in perfect unison. Yep, he left hints on where to find it in the water. I frown and shake my head. I don't have a swimsuit, though, so it's hopeless.
We can help you look,
Lizzie says, trembling with excitement. Soon we're walking along the shore. Daniel and I each grab broken off branches that we can poke in the water while pretending to listen for the thud of a chest. We praise the girls when they fish out old cans and other trash, trying our hardest to interpret them as parts of the world's worst treasure map. Eventually, we all get tired enough to return home. Mrs. Parker is sitting on the front porch and seems pleased. She ushers the girls inside, telling them to take off their wet clothes in the downstairs bathroom, before turning to us. "Did you have fun?" she asks. "Yeah," Daniel says, still smiling. "Oh, good." She looks back and forth between us before settling on her son. "It's so nice to see you playing with another boy again, Danny." His face goes slack before turning bright red. I slap him on the back while chuckling. "Don't worry, my mom still thinks I'm in diapers too." He pulls away from the body contact and doesn't reply. Mrs. Parker grimaces and shrugs. I smile at her reassuringly until we've gone inside. Then I glance over at Daniel, who looks downright ashamed, and wonder what I'm missing. Chapter 5. We've already picked up Dr. Parker and dropped him off at home again. He seemed concerned to see me. Less so when his son explained that we're still planning to connect with my family once Gloria is off work. Now I'm riding shotgun in the car with Daniel, feeling anxious about meeting everyone and if they'll take me in for the night. But the covered casserole dish resting on my lap provides warm reassurance. Mrs. Parker handed it to me just before we left. At least my great-grandparents won't have to worry about feeding an extra mouth tonight. I suppose that was the intent of her sending it along. "Your mom is really nice," I say, mostly to get conversation going again. Daniel has been quiet ever since we returned home from hanging out by the lake. "She's the best," Daniel says. "I love her." I feel bad that she had to cook dinner twice tonight. "She just doubled the recipe. We're having the same thing." His mouth twitches in one corner. "Actually, she probably increased the recipe by 70% or whatever it would be to feed 9 people instead of 5. My mom is incredibly good with numbers." "Uh-oh," I say teasingly. "Someone's a mama's boy." He shoots me a look that I can only interpret as fearful, and I feel the need to ease his concern. Most guys are, don't you think? I always have been. "I love my dad," Daniel says, his voice strained. "He's my idol." "That's cool, too," I reply easily. "No reason it can't be both." We're only a couple blocks away from the dry cleaner. Daniel has gone quiet again. I keep thinking about the comment his mother made, how it was nice to see him playing with other boys. It reminds me of grade school when an overly concerned teacher contacted my parents because I spent most of my time with girls during recess. My parents tried to hide this from me, but the teacher made a comment about it to me on the same day she phoned my house, so I knew what the call was about. And I just happened to overhear my father's response. Good. Maybe he'll have more respect for women when he's older because of it. I wonder if Daniel needs the same kind of reassurance, so I attempt to broach the subject. "I take it you don't have a lot of guy friends?" Daniel keeps his attention on the road. I barely notice when he shakes his head. "Any reason?" I press. He's so quiet that I'm not sure if he'll answer at all. Daniel brings the car to a stop in front of Henderson's dry cleaning and puts it in park. He's staring at the steering wheel when he says, "Dad felt it was for the best." "Why, were you partying too much?" Gloria comes bounding out of the dry cleaner and waves. Daniel gets out of the car to greet her. I watch as they hug and feel confused. When the teacher called my house, if my parents had been less enlightened, they would have urged me to spend more time with other boys. I'm not sure why Daniel's parents would want him to stay away from other guys, but be okay with him hanging out with his ex-girlfriend, if they even know about that. I climb into the back seat, carefully setting the casserole dish on the floorboard so that Gloria can have the passenger seat. I'm not going to make my grandma ride in the back. She seems appreciative of that and perks up when I hand her the paper bag with yesterday's outfit inside. She focuses on the tags first, and then the stitching itself, although not as long. The labels are printed in a way I've never seen before, she informs Daniel. The shirt has letters right on the fabric. They aren't even sewn. They tend to wash off eventually, I say. It's annoying when you want to order the same thing but aren't sure what size it is. They probably think I'm talking about a catalog instead of the internet, but that's fine. I care more about the verdict. I tried on his shoes, Daniel says. They're from another planet. Same one, I correct. I'm not an alien. Gloria turns around and scrutinizes me as if to confirm this. You really do look like family, she says, shaking her head. Here's what we're going to say to my parents. First of all, wait, I interrupt. You believe me? Enough that I'm going to convince my folks to take you in until we can get you home again. Now listen up. Uncle Jack is an alcoholic, the nice kind. I never felt afraid to be around him, but the man is a mess. He disappears for years at a time without us hearing from him. You should say that you're his illegitimate son. Gloria, Daniel says in chastising tones. It's fine, I say with a chuckle. There are plenty of single parents in my day. It's not frowned upon as much. Progress, Gloria says before continuing. Uncle Jack probably has a few kids out of wedlock. I wouldn't say you're from Alabama, though. He usually travels up and down the East Coast, so that would be more likely. I shake my head. I already told Daniel's parents that I'm from Alabama, and if your mom works for them, they must talk. Darn. Gloria leans her back against the passenger side door so she can see us both. Then she snaps her fingers. How about this? Let's say that your mother moved to Alabama, but that you weren't raised there your entire life. Does that work? Yeah, I have some cousins in Savannah that I've visited a few times. I'll say we're from there originally. She nods in approval. That works. What I can't figure out is how we would have become pen pals. If you don't know Jack, so to speak, then how do you know me? We think about it in silence as the car heads west. That surprises me. I assumed that we'd be heading south, to the impoverished neighborhoods that black families were shoved back into whenever they attempted to leave. Do you ever write your uncle? Daniel asks his friend. On occasion, I do love him, but I never expect to hear back. If your uncle still comes around to see Reggie's mom on occasion, maybe he had one of your letters with him. Reggie could have found it and used the address to write you. Sounds like a stretch, I say. Stranger things have happened, Gloria counters. Where do you send the letters? I ask, especially if your uncle moves around so much. To my great aunt, she replies, his mother. Jesus, I breathe. I need a family tree to figure this out. No, Gloria says, sounding excited. That's perfect. Aunt Jeannie is ancient and more than a little senile. So if your imaginary mother had her address and you asked how to get in touch with your biological father... You've lost me, I admit. Good. A confusing lie is harder to see through. Damn. Who knew my grandma was such a schemer? I'll say that Aunt Jeannie forwarded your letter to me by mistake, Gloria clarifies, and we started corresponding that way.
I'll tell them I said you were welcome to stay with us if ever in the area, not thinking you'd take me up on it. And surprise, here I am. I'm still not sure if it'll be enough, but it's hard to think of an alternative. Gloria nods. Have you ever met my Uncle Jack? In the future, I mean. I shake my head. I've heard my parents talk about him, but not often. Huh, that's weird. You've met my parents, though, when they're older? Only your mom. She was half blind by then and mostly sat in a recliner while listening to the radio. But she was still around when I was little. Gloria looks aghast at this news. What about my dad? Oh. I should have realized that I'm talking about people who are, in her mind, still relatively young and in good health. From my perspective, they were always ancient, or had already passed away. We never met. He dies before Mama? How? When? I really don't know. I'm sorry. She stares at me before flopping around in her seat to face the front again. Daniel places his hand over hers and squeezes. It's a reminder that I need to be careful. What is history to me is still very much the present to them. We have a photo of your parents in the living room, I say. They're both old in it, so I think they get to be together for a very long time. I'm not sure if this news makes her feel better. I hear a few sniffs, but when she speaks again, it's all business. You better say that you've never met your father, so you don't get any of the details wrong. You should ask a lot of questions about him. I figure that's what would have brought you to Chicago. And a better life away from the South and all of its bullshit segregation policies. Amen to that, she replies. Almost there now. The neighborhood we pull into is only vaguely familiar to me. Many of the lots are still being developed, the houses in various stages of construction. All of them are small. The one Daniel parks in front of is no exception. I'm reminded of a child's drawing, since the house is a single-story cube with a pointed roof. I'm already worried there won't be enough room for me to stay. The front yard is just a patch of grass. Massive electricity pylons stand directly behind the building, but the vibe is tranquil when we get out of the car. How long have you lived here? I ask. A couple years now, Gloria answers. We were the first black family to buy a house in this neighborhood. Now there are 3. We used to share a terrible apartment with another family, so no matter what you think, pretend to be impressed. I feel genuine pride as we approach. This is the origin of my family. The privileged upbringing I had wouldn't have been possible without the hard work and sacrifices that my ancestors made. I already wish that I could tell my great-grandmother that the house she cleans for a living will one day belong to her descendants. Gloria leads the way inside to a small living room, which is humble but tastefully decorated. I barely glance at it because a wiry woman has entered from the kitchen and is staring at me curiously. Her hair is shoulder length and has been straightened and curled again. She has the same alert eyes as her daughter, although she doesn't seem quite as energetic. What's this? She asks with an uncertain smile. I've got a big surprise for you, Mama, Gloria says. She launches into the story we came up with, but it isn't long before her mother holds up a hand to stop her, so she can address me. You're Jack's boy. Is that what I'm hearing? I never really knew him, I say, skirting the truth. But yeah, we're family. I hold out the casserole. Surprise! She takes the dish from me as the front door opens. I turn and see a solidly built man dressed in dark blue coveralls. He pauses when taking off his brimmed hat and notices the 4 pairs of eyes staring back at him. When he sees me, he does a double take. What's going on? I think you'd better sit down, his wife says, but she doesn't wait for him to. This young man claims to be Jack's boy.
My great-grandfather tries to hang his hat on a nearby hook, but he's staring at me and misses, the hat tumbling to the floor. He doesn't notice, still eyeing me while the rest of the room holds its breath. "Is Jack doing okay?" He seems worried about his brother, which makes me feel guilty. I don't know," I stammer. "He wasn't around much, but I don't have any reason to think otherwise." He looks me over again. I wish I was wearing normal clothes, or at least something that reflects my personal style. "What's your name?" "Reggie," I say, moving toward him with a hand extended. "Reggie Valentine. My mother never married, so I have her name." His hand envelops mine, strong and calloused. I'm worried if he squeezes too hard that my career as a pianist will be over. He doesn't, though. Instead, he releases me and nods toward the interior of the house. "Let's sit down and have us a talk," he suggests. What happens next is a blur. Daniel excuses himself, saying he promised to be back in time for dinner, and leaves so quickly that we don't have a chance to say goodbye. I'm offered a beer, hell yeah, and sit in the living room with my great-grandparents, who introduce themselves as Errol and Harriet. Mr. and Mrs. Parker also asked me to call them by their first names, but it didn't feel right, despite how nice they are. I don't have that problem now, and not because of the warm rush of alcohol in my blood. We really are family. They seem to sense it, too, Errol especially. Gloria does most of the talking, but his attention remains on me. "I see your father in you," he says at one point. "How he looked back when we were boys. I wish I could tell you where to find him, but he's sure to show up again. If you write another letter to Aunt Jeannie, he'll get it eventually." "If he's sober enough to read it," Gloria says wryly. Her mother pats her hand. "Why don't you go heat up the casserole that Melody was nice enough to send along?" Gloria seems reluctant to go, and I don't want to be without her timely saves, but what can we do? She gives me a thumbs up before disappearing into the kitchen, leaving me on my own. "Gloria didn't mention any of this to us," Harriet says with a sigh. "We weren't expecting you." "She's a bit like her uncle," Errol grumps. "He always was a dreamer." "Our daughter has a much better head on her shoulders," Harriet says before seeming to remember me. "Sorry, Jack is a nice man, but he isn't the most responsible." "I'm living proof of that," I say, and to my relief, they both laugh. The family sense of humor hasn't changed much, thank goodness. Meeting you has already been great. I feel more in touch with my roots. "And it's only been half an hour," Gloria says, making an early return from the kitchen. "Think how nice it would be if he stays with us for a few weeks." Harriet raises her eyebrows at this. "Did you set the table? If so, pour everyone a drink and then find something else to keep yourself occupied." Gloria retreats, silent and sullen. "What was your intention when making this trip?" Errol asks me. "You had to know that your father wasn't likely to be here." I'm not crazy about Alabama, and I thought Chicago might have more opportunities for me. He grunts as if this makes sense. "What sort of work do you do?" "I'm a musician." "Next to useless, in other words," he says, exchanging a friendly smile with his wife. "What do you play?" Harriet asks me. "The piano." "Oh, it's hard to go wrong with that," she says. "Are you any good?" I sit up a little straighter. "Better than that, I'm great." She whistles appreciatively. "The boy is confident. He's got that much down." Errol isn't as animated in his response. "Do you have any practical work experience? Not many people can make a living playing music." A bunch of skills spring to mind, but most of them are computer-based and would be useless here. "I'm willing to do anything. I can help around the house, or, "Could you get him work in the shop?" Harriet asks her husband. Errol shakes his head. I'm not sure. Do you know your way around an engine? I stare in response. You mean like a car? He looks at his wife as if that answered the question. I can help you with your work, I suggest to her. I'm great with a broom. He's a natural musician, all right, Harriet says, winking at me. He claims to be the best there ever was and will tell everyone that while sweeping the streets. Whatever it takes to pay the bills, I say, not feeling discouraged. I'm not here to freeload. I'll pull my weight one way or another. I just need a place to stay for a couple of weeks until I can get on my feet. By then, Hannah will have gotten my letter. The gate will be repaired, and I'll get to go home. They'll never see me again. Well, one of them won't. There's an awful lot to take into consideration, Errol says, not expounding further. I get it. They need time to think. From their perspective, they just met a nephew they've never heard of before. I don't push them for an answer. I assure them instead that I'll make other arrangements if they can't take me in, absolving them of any guilt or obligation. The weather is nice enough this time of year that I could camp out if need be. Daniel must have a tent, since he's a Boy Scout. I almost wish I'd thought of that option sooner. I could set myself up near the gate and test it regularly. Then again, with the creepy man still out there, I'd rather not. Wanting to prove how useful I can be, when Harriet says she'll get another round of drinks, I stand instead. I bring only 2 back. I don't want them to think I inherited Jack's bad habits. Then I return to the kitchen to help Gloria serve dinner. Soon we're all seated around a small table eating tuna noodle casserole while carrying on a lively conversation. My hosts keep talking about Jack, wanting me to learn more about him, which is kind. I'm more curious about them, since they're my direct ancestors, and my questions reflect that. I learned that Errol grew up on a farm in the South, which is where he discovered a talent for repairing machinery. Harriet is the youngest of 6 siblings and left school early to begin working as a maid to help support her family. They met at a county fair and had shared dreams that brought them here. I'm hanging on every word, not having to fake my enthusiasm. By the end of the meal, the ice has been thoroughly broken. Gloria and I offer to clean up, which can't hurt how charitable her parents are feeling toward me. What do you think? I ask as we stand at the sink together while washing dishes by hand. They don't buy it, she tells me. They think you're nuts. Gloria waits until I look concerned before she bumps her hip against mine. They love you. Are you kidding? They'll probably give you my room and make me sleep on the couch. I wish I could share her confidence. When we re-enter the living room, Errol stands and motions for me to follow him. We step out back where he lights up a cigarette. I shake my head when he offers me one. I wish my brother had been a better father to you, Errol says. But you seem to have turned out fine without him. I keep thinking how, if the situation was reversed, I'd expect him to help Gloria if she ever needed him to. That's what family is for. So you're welcome to stay. I won't lie, though. Making the house payments takes every cent we can muster. We've had a few close calls. If we miss even one, we lose the house and all the money we've put into it. That can't be right. Doesn't the bank charge late fees first and give you warnings? It's hard for black folks to get a loan, Errol grumbles. Even up here, we had to buy it on contract. How does that work? It means the little worm who sold us the place still holds the deed until we finish paying him off. He wants us to fail so he can sell this house to someone else and keep the money we've given him. That's what happened to the first family who lived here. That's so fucked up. Yeah. Errol spits on the ground. The whole situation is a damn disgrace, and a common story for people like us. But we don't have any other choice. Anyway, I figure you staying here won't be much of a strain. It'll add to the grocery bill. He looks me over. But not by much. I'll start searching for work right away, I promise. And I mean it. Even if I'm only here for a single week, I'd like to ease their burden instead of adding to it. For all I know, they might end up losing the house. My grandmother never said anything to make me think otherwise.
I don't remember her talking about it. Maybe there's a reason for that. Here, I say, remembering what I've got in my pocket. I try handing him the $10 bill. He's already holding up a hand like he intends to refuse, but I insist. Family takes care of each other, I say. He accepts the money but doesn't pocket it yet. We can't offer you a room of your own. We have a fold-out bed in the basement. Perfect. Errol grunts. I don't think you'll describe it that way once you've been down there. But it is dry. I've made sure of that. I'll ask around about potential work for you and help you find a cheap place to stay if you decide to make Chicago your home. Thank you, I say. I appreciate it. Really. My voice is strained with emotion. I feel proud to call these people family. They've clearly worked hard to give Gloria the best life possible, and their willingness to share some of that comfort with me is more than I could ever repay. We talk a little longer before we go inside. Gloria is thrilled by the news. She gathers fresh sheets and the other things I'll need while Errol and I set up the fold-out bed. The basement is more like a cellar. The walls and floors are raw stone, the ceiling a jumble of wooden planks and pipes. They set me up in one corner next to a wooden shelf full of homemade preserves. I dread sharing a bed with spiders and other creepy crawlies, but I won't utter a single word in complaint. Not to them and not to their daughter. We return upstairs to the living room and talk while listening to jazz on a glowing radio the size of a toaster. The adults are clearly tired. Their bedroom is on the ground floor. Not wanting to disturb them, I return downstairs and stretch out on the bed while still dressed, adjusting to the unfamiliar surroundings while thinking about the day. Daniel in particular. He left so suddenly, almost as if he was glad to be rid of me. And we seemed to be getting along so well. Was that only the politeness of the era? The answer eludes me. I don't feel like I need to sleep yet either. When I hear the basement stairs creak, I raise my head and am happy to see Gloria gesturing for me to follow her. So I do. The floors of the attic are wooden and strewn with old rugs. Large swaths of colorful cloth have been pinned to the angled walls that meet at a point, making the long, narrow space feel like a tent, or maybe the interior of a stereotypical gypsy caravan. The entire vibe works for me. I ignore the small bed and gravitate toward the dresser where I see a portable record player next to a stack of vinyls. Listening to music downstairs while getting acquainted with my great-grandparents made me realize how much I've missed playing. My fingers practically twitch as I pick up an old James P. Johnson record. This isn't how I spend most Saturday nights, Gloria says from behind me. What do you usually do? I ask, turning around to face her. She's wearing a pair of turquoise pajamas that make me think of the Chevy Bel Air. Sometimes we go to parties when we can find them. Doesn't matter if anyone knows who we are. We'll crash any bash. I'm going to have so much dirt on my grandma when I'm home again. I plan on teasing her mercilessly. When you say we, you mean you and Daniel, right? She nods and pulls out the chair to a small writing desk. This is for me, as it turns out. She sits cross-legged on the bed. We do everything together. I'm not sure how much I want to challenge that statement. With anyone else, I'd ask for explicit details, but this is the woman who used to, or will eventually, give me baths with her gnarled old hands. I proceed with cautious curiosity. You two used to be an item, huh? She smiles demurely. Junior year. It didn't last long. How come? She's quiet before answering. We decided that we make better friends. Which is a shame because he sure is a dreamboat. I laugh. He's a little haughty for sure. Gloria seems confused. That's a strange thing to say. You don't have that slang yet? When someone is attractive, we call them hot. So do we, she responds. But you don't hear guys describe each other that way. Oh. I know Black history. I haven't studied gay rights nearly as much.
I'm familiar with the Stonewall riots, but that doesn't happen until another decade from now. I'm not sure what people thought about gay people before then. I can't imagine that they were very accepting. Does that include Gloria? My grandma was incredibly supportive when I came out at 14. She simply hugged me and said, "That's wonderful news, Sugar Bean. I love you." Gloria still has a lot of living to do before she becomes the woman I remember. Attitudes will change drastically over the course of her lifetime. She might not be there yet, so I decide to test the waters. You can tell when a woman is attractive, can't you? I ask. That's true. Guys can too. Most are just too hung up on being labeled gay to admit it. Gay? Yeah, you know, homosexual. Do you have that term? She nods while chewing her bottom lip. Even her brow is creased, so I decide to steer the conversation toward a more comfortable subject. I nod at the far end of the room, where a nook just past the stairs is cluttered with a sewing machine and garments stabbed full of pins. How long have you been making clothes? Since I was a little girl. I used to hand sew outfits for my doll. Hey, in the future, do I have my own dressmaking shop? Now I understand why I'm up here, I say with a chuckle. You want me to play fortune teller. You have to tell me something, she says. Anything. Too risky. What if it changes the timeline? Gloria groans in frustration. All I want to know is if I manage to open my own shop or not. Right, and let's say that you do. I tell you about it, and a few years from now, when you find a potential retail space, you think, this must be what Reggie was talking about. You rent the place, it's the wrong location, it turns out to be a disaster, and you go broke before giving up on your dreams. But if I don't tell you anything, you might have doubts about the shop you nearly rented and wait for a better opportunity. Maybe that's where you meet your future husband, which I really need you to do, or I'll never exist. So if I steer you wrong now, I might be preventing my own birth. You worry too much, she says with a sigh. Although I see what you mean. It's probably the same reason when I'm older that I never mentioned meeting you at this age. Holy crap. I didn't even think of that. Wow. Your older self never let on. If you don't play poker now, you should start. And for the record, Gloria says, getting up from the bed and moving toward me, I brought you up here so you could write your letter. Now I'm wondering if there's any point. In the future, I'll know how and why you disappeared. I'll make sure the gate is rebuilt. Good point, I say after thinking it over. But I'd still like to write the letter. I want Hannah to hear from me directly so she knows I'm okay, even if I don't make it home. And you'll need to get permission from whoever owns the land. That'll be the city, most likely, and they aren't going to do anything without a ton of signatures and outside money. Hannah can help you with that. Nothing stirs up social media like a middle-class white girl in distress. She'll probably go viral. The crowdfunding page will pull in millions. I understood about half of that, Gloria says, reaching past me to the desk. This is my best stationery. Try to get it right on the first attempt. I wasn't expecting to do this now, but that's okay. I've already thought about what I'd want to put into the letter. I explain what happened to me when I disappeared and where I ended up so Hannah will know. I promise to chisel her initials into the gate so she'll have proof. Then I plead with her to restore it so I can return home. The last part is the hardest. I write a message to my family and friends in case I never make it back, telling them how much I love and miss them. I'm getting emotional and try to hide it. Gloria notices anyway, placing a square of cloth in front of me. I realize after a moment that it's for blowing my nose, which I do. I place the letter in an envelope and write on it as much of Hannah's information as I can remember. After collecting myself, I rise and hand it to Gloria, who is flipping through a magazine on the bed. I'll put it in a hidden place, she tells me. When I continue to stare expectantly, she adds, if it wasn't a secret, it wouldn't be hidden. Right. That makes sense. And now that I've done you a favor, she says leadingly, Uh-oh, I say, when noticing the mischief in her eyes. I won't ask you about my future, but surely it wouldn't do any harm for you to tell me some general information. Like what? She shrugs. Do things get better for people like us? Yes, I say after hesitating. But it's a long war with a lot of ugly battles. People still die because of the color of their skin. Scheming politicians still try to contain us to ghettos while depriving us of education, equal opportunity, and even the right to vote. But it's better than it used to be. Far from perfect. But we keep moving forward, no matter how hard others try to stop us. I'm tempted to tell her that she'll live long enough to witness a black man take office as president, but I don't want to ruin the surprise. I still remember the way she cried when the election results came in, and how she hugged each of us gathered around the television. I also don't want her to expect that to be the end of it, especially considering the self-serving slimeball who slithered into the Oval Office 8 years later. What about women's rights? Way better. Nothing is perfect in the future, but in the next 20 years, you'll see a lot of changes that you'll like. I try to imagine my grandmother in the flower-powered 60s and can't. Does she become a hippie? I have so many questions for her. How ironic that she wants to know the future while I'm eager to get back to it so I can learn about her past. How about diseases? Gloria presses. Please tell me that cancer has bitten the dust. Still working on that one, I say. And other illnesses? I shrug. Like what? I don't know. You mentioned homosexuality. Is that an easy fix? It takes all of my willpower not to bristle at this. Homosexuality isn't a disease. Gloria seems confused. But doctors already say that it can be avoided if changes are made early enough. No, it can't. There's nothing to avoid or fix. It occurs naturally. You might as well ask if there's a cure for blonde hair or brown eyes in the future. Those are physical traits, she counters. Homosexuality is a psychological disorder. I can't believe I'm having this discussion with my own grandmother. Doctors might think that now, but I promise you, in my day, it's proven to be biological. Only the truly deluded try to cure someone of it. You're sure? She presses. Yes. Oh. Her expression is pained, making me wonder if she has a secret that I was never aware of. Then the pieces fall into place, and it's so damn obvious that I can't believe I missed it. Daniel! I almost speak his name aloud. Instead, I clench my jaw and want more than ever to return home. Reading about the past can be difficult when confronted with all of humanity's stupidity, but to actually return there and witness it? I feel sorry for him. I'll try to help Daniel understand that he's not the problem before I go, but I want out of here as soon as possible. I want to return to a time when I can be annoyed by all the corporations who treat gay people like an exciting new sales demographic to exploit. That's such a small and trivial problem compared to having parents who try to cure you, or friends who think you have a psychological disorder. You'll give that letter to my friend? I ask, needing a guarantee that I won't be stuck here forever. Gloria nods, seeming confused by the change of subject. Good. I feel tired, emotionally more than anything. It's been a busy couple of days. I'm going to turn in for the night. Okay. I creep down 2 sets of stairs to the basement, strip off my clothes, and climb into bed. But sleep continues to elude me as my thoughts race. Most of them about Daniel. I revisit every interaction with him and see each from a new perspective. Then I think about his earnest eyes, the kindness in his voice, and how tragic it will be if those delicate lips are never kissed by someone that he truly loves. Chapter 6. Sleep must have overtaken me because the next thing I know, I'm being shaken awake. Get up or you'll miss breakfast. I open bleary eyes to find Gloria standing over me, wearing the same turquoise pajamas from the night before. Spry as can be, she races back up the stairs. I sit up and swing my legs over the edge of the bed, yawning a few times. Not wanting to put on the awkward outfit I wore the day before, I grab the clothes I arrived in and revel in their comfort after slipping on the muscle shirt and basketball shorts. Then I trudge upstairs. I'm relieved to find the rest of the family wearing bathrobes while gathered in the kitchen. All the comforts of home. Errol is standing at the stove, moving scrambled eggs around with a spatula. Harriet is seated at the table. She nods and says good morning while Gloria darts back and forth between the refrigerator and the table to set things on it. Good morning, everyone, I say around a yawn. Errol looks me over and starts laughing. Those are some real nice pajamas you got there, Reggie. The others laugh too, but I don't mind. If anything, it sets me at ease, since it's the sort of good-natured ribbing I've come to expect from my family. Pajamas? I retort. No, no, no. Back in Savannah, these are the fanciest duds that money can buy. I plan on wearing this to job interviews. Errol chuckles appreciatively before focusing on his work again. When I offer my help, Harriet pats the table next to her and invites me to sit. Pay attention, she says in a stage whisper. This is how you treat a woman. I do nothing but cook and clean all week, so when Sunday rolls around, he makes sure I don't have to. He treats me like a queen. I'm going to barf, Gloria responds, but her eyes are sparkling. Is that really what people wear in Savannah? Harriet asks, leaning back in her chair to take another look. You don't set trends by copying others, I respond. I bet it'll be more popular in the future. Gloria snorts while pouring me a cup of coffee. It's an acquired taste I've only recently begun to appreciate, so I'm glad when she leaves enough room in the mug for me to dilute it with milk. We should probably go shopping today, she says when taking a seat across from me. You've now seen all the clothes that Reggie owns. I lost everything I had with me on the way up here, I explain. What happened? Harriet asks, sounding concerned. I dozed off in a park, woke up in the rain, and ran for cover without my pack. When I went back later, someone had helped themselves to it. You're welcome to borrow some of my clothes, Errol says as he begins shoveling egg onto everyone's plates. I can rip the sleeve off one of my shirts. That should about cover you from head to toe. He's exaggerating, but not by much. I bet me and Daniel could both fit inside the coveralls he was wearing yesterday. It's a thought I wouldn't mind dwelling on longer. Can I borrow the car? Gloria asks eagerly. I wanted to make the rounds anyway. Don't you have enough clothes to experiment on upstairs? Her father chastises. Sure, but you've got to grab those bargains before someone else does. I wouldn't mind staying home, Errol, Harriet says with a slight purr in her voice. We can get cozy. Gloria's eyes go wide, and she starts shoving food into her mouth with desperate speed, like it will help her escape the conversation sooner. I focus on breakfast too, cutting open a steaming biscuit to spread butter and jam on it. I always like switching back and forth between sweet and savory. Did you ask Reggie if he wants to go to church? Harriet says to her daughter. He might prefer that over shopping. It's okay, I say quickly. My mom isn't very religious. She's more spiritual, if that makes sense. It certainly does, Harriet replies. God sees how hard we work all week. When he said that Sunday was supposed to be a day of rest, I don't think he meant we should wake up just as early and rush out of the house like we always do. People after my own heart, I say appreciatively. Although we do have our own sort of church, Errol says with a smirk I find hard to interpret. We can bring you with us next weekend. That's right, Harriet says. I think you'll like it there. I look to Gloria for an explanation, but she shrugs with a subtle smile, clearly in on the conspiracy. I'll have to wait and see what they mean, if I'm still around then.
If not, I'll ask her about it when we reunite in the future. After breakfast, we take turns getting ready. I don't see any choice but to put on the clothes Daniel loaned me, including the socks, which I'm not feeling great about. Summer is still ramping up, but it's hot enough during the day that I've been sweating. Air conditioning doesn't seem to be common yet. Another day of running around in the heat, and I'm going to stink to high heaven. I've been helping myself to other people's deodorant after showering, and I've gotten creative about the way I brush my teeth. The less said about that, the better. In other words, I miss my creature comforts. I'm not sure there's a solution to my plight, as I tell Gloria while we're standing in the driveway next to a Ford mainline. I've never heard of that model, but I dig the white rimmed tires which stand out against the black body and its silver trim. While not nearly as stunning as the Bel Air, it has similar curves. I was never much into cars before, but I'll have a higher appreciation for the classics once I've returned home, after I've changed into fresh clothes. That'll be my number one priority. As much as I'd love some new threads, I tell her, I don't have any money. Gloria shrugs. I figured. And I don't like the idea of anyone spending their money on me when I won't be around much longer. Don't be so stubborn, Gloria says, pinching my cheek. Let your nice old granny buy you a present. She cackles and moves around to the driver's side door. Besides, when you see the kind of places I shop, you won't be thanking me. Come on. Soon we're cruising along the road with the windows down and the radio blaring. This is comfortable territory for me. I lean back in the seat, close my eyes against the wind, and tap my foot along with a jaunty Frank Sinatra tune I'm not familiar with. By the time we've rolled into town, a slower song comes on the radio, the DJ announcing it as The Great Pretender by the Platters. The lyrics make me think of Daniel again, and what it must mean to be closeted in this era. He can't go online to find out more about his sexual orientation, or fire up an app to meet someone like himself. I don't care if it changes history or creates an alternate timeline. I'm not leaving without making sure he knows that there's nothing wrong with him. Think we'll connect with Daniel today? I ask when the song ends. Sure thing, Gloria replies. He's at church with his family, but we can meet up later. Her forehead crinkles again like there's some big concern that she needs to share with me. I think I get it. She might not have the right idea about what makes a person queer, but she's stuck by her friend regardless, and in the future she's always been good to me and my boyfriends. I like him, I say, wanting to reassure her. She looks relieved. Me too. Even if he is kind of a nerd, I add. He's square, all right, Gloria says with a laugh. Why do you think he dresses like his dad? You mean this isn't even in style? I ask, yanking at the dopey shirt I'm wearing. Not for the cool kids, she answers. We'll get you gussied up, don't worry. She pulls into a church parking lot, which confuses me because I thought that's what we wanted to avoid. The destination makes more sense when she leads me down the stairs of a side entrance to a basement filled with used clothing and housewares. A thrift store, one run as a charity, I realize as we begin to browse, which I feel guilty about until I remember that I literally don't have a penny to my name. I'm exactly the sort of person these stores are meant for. All of the fashions look out of date to me, so I choose what suits me and rely on Gloria to steer me away from anything that will make people think I'm a drip, as she puts it. We visit 2 more churches, and by the end of our shopping spree, I have button-up shirts both long and short-sleeved, a cardigan jacket in black with gray stripes, more of the long shorts that I like despite the ultra-high waist, and a pair of classy slacks that Gloria promises to alter to fit me. We're walking down Main Street when I notice something odd. Why are so many shops closed? She looks at me like I'm not making sense. Because of the blue laws. It's Sunday, remember? Stores aren't allowed to stay open. You're lucky we're in the suburbs. The people downtown don't have as many options. Everything is closed there. And these laws prevent people from having fun, Gloria says. It's a religious thing.
God hates grocery stores, apparently. Maybe that's where Eve really got the apple from. But we just went shopping at 3 different churches. Oh, no, no, it's okay when they do it. She rolls her eyes. It was worse where we used to live. Here they let important businesses stay open, like the drugstore, so folks can still buy medicine or whatever. That's our next destination. Woolworth's is the only open store we see for the next few blocks. Thank goodness they sell more than just drugs. I wonder if that's how modern pharmacies became miniature supermarkets. They don't offer much in the way of clothes, but we pick up socks and tidy whities, the sort of underwear I haven't worn since I was 12. We also buy a toothbrush and other hygiene basics. We've worked up an appetite by then, so we grab a quick sandwich from the lunch counter. Without incident, I'm happy to report, although I'll never get used to people smoking indoors, especially where food is involved. How did anyone put up with it? You spent almost $40 on me, I say as we leave. Only so I don't have to look at you in those baggy clothes anymore. I'm still getting used to the price differences here. How much do you earn? I do good work and Mrs. Henderson knows it, so I get $1.25 an hour. Which means you've blown a week's wages on me. You can pay me back when you get a paper route. My blank expression prompts her to add, You know, the boys who ride around on bikes and deliver the newspaper? Oh, I really will pay you back. I don't feel right about this. It's not so bad, Gloria says. Mrs. Henderson lets me display the dresses I make in the shop window. Did you notice that yesterday? I didn't. You'll see as we're passing by, she says while leading us to the car. I sell them for 15 apiece, sometimes more. There are a lot of rich folks around here. You're really serious about that dream, huh? Yep. Although I feel like you would know that already if I was ever successful at it. You might have been, I admit sheepishly. You know how it is with grandparents. They make you the center of attention. There are a lot of questions I never thought to ask. And to be fair, you weren't very chatty about your past, even when I asked about Daniel. Maybe you did that on purpose, so I couldn't give away too much while I'm here? My future self is so clever, Gloria says, winking over the top of the car before we get in. I at least want to know what your plans are, I tell her. Is there some sort of school you're going to next? No, she says firmly. I plan on staying right where I am until the house is paid off. Errol mentioned the shady mortgage. That should be illegal. I think it is in my day. You can't always live with your parents, though. True, but what am I going to do if they lose the house? They won't have a thing. And when are they supposed to retire? With the interest adding up, they're looking at another 20 years before the deed is in their name. They'll be in their 60s by then. I never had to worry about my parents' finances when growing up. I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't even know if our house is paid off. 10 minutes later, and we're parked in front of it. In the light of day, all I can see are the differences. The missing sun porch, the absent extension where my grandmother lives, the shutters painted blue instead of green. Home, just not quite yet. Gloria must be having similar thoughts. You're telling me this is where I end up living? No. Forget I ever said that. I must marry a wealthy man, or your mother does. What's her name? Beyonce, I reply. That was a joke. Please don't name her that. I'll never live it down. Gloria tilts her head. I think it's a nice name. Maybe I'll save it for one of her siblings. Does she have a sister? Or a brother? I'm not telling you how many kids you're going to have, but I am your favorite grandson. Never forget that. When we go to the front door, Mrs. Parker seems happy to see us. She hugs Gloria and tells me how nice I look. I changed clothes in the Woolworth's restroom before we ate. I'm wearing a plain white button-up shirt and solid black shorts. No stripes, no checks, and no patterns that make me think of bowling alleys. I'm not sure what her son will think of my outfit or how he'll feel about seeing me again.
Mrs. Parker calls for him from the entryway. Daniel appears at the top of the stairs, his eyes passing over everyone until they reach me. There they remain. He almost seems relieved to see me, the smile he flashes apologetic. Then he remembers his mother is present and tears his gaze away. That's fine. He just told me everything I need to know. Guess who's got the car? Gloria sing-songs when we're left alone. Come on, sweet stuff. Let's go for a ride. You look sharp, Daniel says to me as we cross the front lawn. Thanks. I still have your old clothes. I'll wash them before giving them back. No, that's okay. Gloria is skipping across the grass ahead of us and is almost out of earshot, so in a lower voice I murmur, Are you sure? They probably smell like me. His face grows a little red, his response strained. Mom will launder them. It's no problem, really. Not only do I have his number, I've caught his eye. And if I'm honest, he caught mine long ago. That's good. I hope it'll make it easier to get through to him when the time is right. Do you guys call shotgun? I ask. Daniel's confusion is short-lived. You mean riding shotgun? Yeah. He grins and breaks into a run, shouting a single word over his shoulder. Dibs! I lose the race, despite my $200 shoes. I have a nice view from the back seat anyway. Gloria is talking excitedly to Daniel as she begins driving, telling him how it went with her parents last night and what we got up to today. Their dynamic is similar to what Hannah and I have together. It's clear that they love each other. You're the best, Daniel says to her after she tells him about my new wardrobe. He glances back at me with shining eyes. Maybe I should let you pick out my clothes. I keep telling ya, she responds. Hold up, I say in my defense. I chose most of it myself. He wanted to buy a Letterman sweater, Gloria says in disapproving tones. It had a big R on it. My name is Reggie. I thought it would be cool. They both laugh. I don't get why. Nor do I mind, because I adore Daniel's grin. Where are we going? I ask, when noticing familiar landmarks outside the window. To the gate, Gloria replies. We have work to do. You're leaving? Daniel asks me, the joyous expression disappearing. I doubt that, Gloria says. We only need to make some preparations. Besides, I'm eager to check it out again, now that we know what the gate can do. Half a dozen cars are in the parking lot when we get to Churchill Woods. We can hear children playing after we pull into a spot and get out. Gloria walks around to the back of the Ford and pops the trunk. I'm surprised to see a hammer and chisel inside. I didn't tell you about that, I say with a glare. You read the letter. You didn't say not to, Gloria replies shamelessly. I shouldn't have to. It wasn't addressed to you. I'm just making sure my grandson keeps his promises. She shoves the tools into my arms and sticks out her tongue. Let's go. I'm excited to try the gate. I'm hoping I'll end up in the Wild West. What's the chisel for? Daniel asks as we progress down the path. I need to leave a message for my friend. I explain the plan during the rest of the walk, noticing how increasingly sullen he becomes. There she is, Gloria says as we approach the gate. If I end up in the past, tell my parents to look for an old savings account in their name. They'll never need to worry about money again. And with that, she takes off running toward the gate. Daniel gasps, and I hold my breath as she passes beneath it, but like all the times I did the same thing when growing up, nothing happens. I almost question my sanity until I walk closer and feel the strange hum building within me. You've written the letter now, Daniel says. Are you sure that won't be enough? No, I admit. You've got to try, Gloria says, returning to take my hand. She pulls me toward the gate.
I look back over my shoulder at Daniel's worried expression, not ready to leave him yet. Gloria is laughing like it's a game. I don't resist her much. That I ended up here seems so impossible. If there's any chance for me to return, no matter how small. My entire body vibrates as we pass beneath the stone arch, but the world around me doesn't change. Gloria groans in disappointment when I fail to vanish. Then she lets go of me and grabs Daniel's hand instead, subjecting him to the same treatment. It's easier to relax and see it as harmless fun as she pulls him through the gate and pretends to cast a spell while speaking gibberish. Amusing as this is, it does make me wonder why the gate activated when it did. Because it fell apart? Did that spark some long dormant power? Gloria notices me standing there and staring. "Better get to work," she says, "before any ankle biters show up to cramp our style." "You mean rats?" I ask, glancing around in concern. "No," she replies with a snort. "I mean children. You still have those in the future, don't you?" I roll my eyes and walk around the gate, scanning the letters and numbers that have already been chiseled into its surface while searching for an appropriate spot. I linger on a square outline with the digit 65 hammered into the center, confused that anyone from 1965 could have left such a mark in the 50s. Then I realize it's probably from a century before. I choose the support pillar on the right, since it's the sturdiest in the future, and kneel in front of the side that people will see when approaching. I place my hand on the stone before beginning my work and feel it humming beneath my palm. "Come check this out," I say to Gloria, explaining the sensation I get when nearing or interacting with the gate. She places her hand over mine before sliding it beneath to touch the stone. I watch her closely for any reaction, and she looks surprised. "I have to pee," she says when pulling away. "That's it?" "Hey, it's serious business. I should have used the restrooms by the park entrance. Be right back." I shake my head as I watch her leave. Then I look at Daniel, realizing that we're alone. "Want to try again?" I ask, pressing my palm against the stone. He licks his lips nervously. Then he nods and moves toward me. I stand as he nears. The vibration is the most intense when I'm directly beneath the gate. I walk there and extend my arms, placing a hand flat against each column. "Especially in my chest. Put your hand there again." He swallows and touches the back of his fingers to my sternum. "Nothing?" I ask. When he shakes his head, I say, "Maybe it would help if you were touching my skin." "Unbutton my shirt." He hesitates, and I'm tempted to do it for him, but I know he's going to remember this moment. I wait him out. With trembling hands, he finally undoes the first button, and then another. He tries to use the back of his fingers again, but I shake my head. All the way. Full contact. He searches my eyes. I nod encouragingly. He finally complies. I keep telling myself that I'm doing this for him, but there's a lot of comfort in being this close to another guy again. I'm tempted to pull him close and take everything I need. I know that would be too much for him, so instead I inhale deeply and focus on the warmth of his hand. My chest rises beneath it as I take another breath. When I do this a third time, he does the same, exhaling on the same beat as me. We're in unison. I let my arms drop and wrap my fingers around the hand on my chest, gripping it gently. What you feel inside, there's nothing wrong with it. You don't have a disease or a disorder. It's natural. I promise. He stares into my eyes with a mad sort of hope. Then we hear a shriek and he pulls his hand away. A second later, the sound is followed by a burbling giggle. Kids are playing somewhere nearby. We both realize this at the same time and laugh as the tension dissipates. I don't try to recapture the mood. Gloria will be back soon anyway. But I do want to continue this someplace where we won't be interrupted. Can we talk tonight? I ask him. Just me and you? In person, right? He asks, looking fearful that I'll say otherwise. Yeah, I answer with a chuckle. Definitely in person. When Gloria is ready to go home, tell her you'll give me a ride later on. Can you think of an excuse? I'll try. Good. I watch him while buttoning up my shirt, smiling at the way he has his bottom lip trapped beneath a front tooth. Then I let him off the hook and move away to begin my work. I hunker down near the base of the pillar, use dirt to mark a rough outline of what I want to write, and start hammering. The shop class I took in junior high didn't prepare me for this. Daniel stays close to me, offering advice on how I should chisel thin lines first and work on widening them out from there. Once I've got the hang of it, he walks around the gate while examining the details, and when Gloria returns, he stands farther away with her. Probably so they can still converse over the noise I'm making. A group of kids do interrupt us, but their attention spans send them darting off in another direction soon enough. After my bones have been thoroughly jarred, I get up and take a step back to consider my work. At the base of the pillar are now 2 large capital letters, HW for Hannah Watts. There's no way she can miss it. That's what troubles me. I don't remember seeing this before. I tell the others as they rejoin me. It's her initials. We would have noticed. Are you sure? Gloria asks. Maybe I filled it in with clay or something so you wouldn't know what was going to happen. Why bother? We would have been excited to see her initials as kids, but wouldn't have inferred anything as dramatic as time travel. Moss could have grown over it, Daniel suggests. Or maybe dirt and spray paint had helped to obscure the letters. Even then, I remember reading everything when we were little, carefully. You know how obscene graffiti can be. Kids live for that. Daniel nods. There's some writing in Latin on this side that I always meant to translate. You're hopeless, Gloria tells him while shaking her head. Show me, I say, not remembering what he's referring to. He does, and I laugh because I always thought it was random nonsense. Omnia out nut squash, I say, attempting to read the words aloud. Any idea what that means? They both shrug. How old is this thing? People never spoke Latin in the United States. Maybe the stones were shipped over from Rome, Daniel suggests. There's a date over here, I say, leading them to where I saw the number earlier. The gate must be from 1865 at least, or maybe 1765. It can't be from before that, since the Native Americans wouldn't have written numbers like these, unless the stones were shipped from somewhere else, as Daniel was saying. There's no apostrophe, Gloria points out. Maybe it literally means the year 65. Daniel is muttering under his breath while counting on his fingers. Then he looks up sharply. That's how far Reggie traveled back in time. A shiver runs down my spine. What? 65 years exactly, Daniel confirms. That can't be a coincidence. I also don't know what it means. We should come back later with a pencil and paper to write everything down, Daniel says, even if it doesn't seem significant. He's looking at me meaningfully, and it finally clicks that this is our excuse. Good idea, I say. Don't you want to try the gate again? Gloria asks. Now that your friend has her proof, maybe she's able to raise enough of a stink that people volunteer to rebuild the gate. You never know. It's worth a shot. And yet, my feet refuse to move. Reggie? She presses. My eyes dart to Daniel long enough to see the unhappiness on his face. Then I shake my head. I'll try again, but first I want to have a better idea of what we're dealing with. Let's get the Latin translated and everything else written down first. I don't want to walk through the gate and end up another 65 years in the past. When would that be? The 1890s, Daniel answers. No thanks. The 50s are strange enough. I don't want to ride around in a stagecoach while trying to find cheap leather chaps with my great-great-great-grandmother. I suggest we explore the park together, in case there is some other clue to help us, or any sign of what happened to my backpack and the man who stole it. We search, but don't find anything. Gloria suggests we escape the afternoon heat by seeing a matinee. We drive downtown to the Glen Art Theater, which was a staple of my youth. The interior is different from what I remember, no longer divided into 4 separate screens. Our only option is The Deadly Mantis, which is basically a Godzilla ripoff, but with a giant bug instead of a lizard. I'm braced for the worst special effects imaginable. Considering that they didn't have computers to rely on, the giant praying mantis puppet is remarkably impressive. The movie itself is subpar, but made more fun by the people in the cinema jeering at the screen. I can't help noticing that Daniel chose to sit on the other side of Gloria, away from me. Did he have a change of heart? I'm still not sure afterwards when we go to White Castle for sliders. I wouldn't mind a little covert flirtation as reassurance. It isn't until we drive to his house that I finally get a signal from him. That was a fun day, Gloria says as we pull up. But I have some alterations to finish before tomorrow. I think it should be safe to go home now. Your parents again? Daniel asks. They sure love each other, Gloria replies, sounding exasperated. Want to meet up after work tomorrow? That would be fun. Daniel shifts in the front seat so he can see me better. Hey, Reggie, why don't we go back to the gate with some paper? I want to make a record of everything written on it, in case that helps us learn more. You mean now? I ask innocently. That could work, if you give me a ride back to Gloria's house afterwards. What? She says. I can stay out longer. Crap. Are you sure? Daniel asks. I was thinking of doing a charcoal rubbing. Remember when we went to the graveyard so I could get my merit badge? It'll be just as fun. On second thought, Gloria says, I also have a few letters to write. Promise you won't go through the gate, Reggie. I want to be there when you do. I'm staying away from it until we know more, I assure her. After a round of hugs, she says goodbye, and we wave as she drives down the street. Then we face each other, blissfully alone. Let's go inside, Daniel suggests. I'll grab some paper and... We're not really going back to the gate, are we? I try a lopsided smile. I'd rather focus on each other. Oh. The sun is a crimson ball on the horizon. Maybe that's what makes his face appear a little pink, but I don't think so. Should I ask to borrow the car? Nah. I turn toward the park across the street. The lake is surrounded by trees, which will help shield us from the surrounding houses, and I know a spot that is especially private. Let's go for a walk together. He agrees. We're both silent until we've put distance between us and the house. Instead of asking him about his experiences, I decide to start by sharing some of my own. My band class took a school trip in middle school, I say, out of state, which was a big deal. We went to see the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and while that was great, there was this guy. The hotel we were staying in had students from all over the country who had come for similar reasons. The first time I saw him, he was in the lobby laying out his Pokemon cards. Those are sort of like baseball cards, but with fantasy creatures instead of athletes. I was deep into collecting them at the time, even though most people my age were starting to notice girls. I hadn't, though. I glance over at Daniel, and he's nodding, like he knows what I mean. So, there was this adorable guy from the West Coast, with a surfer vibe, laying out the same cards that I loved. I struck up a conversation with him, and he showed off his collection, but They didn't hold my attention, not like he did. I could barely take my eyes off him. At first, I told myself that I admired how he looked, as if I wanted to be more like him. What I really wanted was to know absolutely everything about him, including weird stuff like how his skin felt or what his hair smelled like. I attempt to laugh away my embarrassment. We only got to see each other before and after school organized events, which is a shame because we could have been good friends, even if I wasn't attracted to him. He lived too far away, though. 3 days together. That's all we had. It tore me apart when we had to say goodbye. I was 13 years old, had never been in a relationship, and somehow managed to get my heart broken anyway. That's when I realized who I am and what I want. Daniel is staring at the path we're walking along, his brow furrowed. It's hard to tell what his thoughts are, so I press on. I wasn't able to accept the truth right away. I let myself miss him while trying to deny the reason why. I wanted to be like everyone else because that seemed easier, safer. But it was too late. There were other guys at my school who soon caught my eye, and there were books and movies about gay men falling in love that I devoured in secrecy. That helped. The explicit stuff, not so much, despite being hot. It was the emotional stories that resonated with me, since they matched what I was feeling inside. I saw what I could have with another man, and it gave me the courage to come out, first to myself and later to others. You didn't try to cure yourself? Daniel asks incredulously, speaking up at last. People don't do that in the future, I respond after a moment's hesitation. Only quacks believe it's possible. Daniel sounds offended when responding. My dad knows what he's talking about. I have no doubt that he's educated himself the best he can on the subject, I say diplomatically, but new technologies allow for more comprehensive studies, and while there are still a lot of questions, the overwhelming majority of his peers in the future agree that there's nothing wrong with being gay. I can tell this confuses him, so I try to clarify. That's the term most people use. Homosexual sounds too, I don't know, clinical. Gay is a better fit because we're a happy bunch of freaks, despite all the crap we've had to put up with over the decades. Public opinion shifts. It's a narrow majority, but most people are cool with it. With you being a homosexual? He asks, seeming shocked. Yeah, including my grandmother. Gloria knows? She will, but she doesn't yet. Did she tell you about... His jaw snaps shut. No, she didn't give anything away. I figured it out by reading between the lines. I'd rather hear you tell your story, if you're willing to talk about it. He thinks in silence before nodding. I motion for Daniel to follow me and lead him to my favorite spot. I'm relieved to see that everything is just as I remember. We're on the far side of the lake now, where an alcove of trees shields a small circle of land from view. Water laps gently against the shore, a few fireflies drifting over the surface as frogs croak out a soothing rhythm. A bench is nestled against the trees, facing all of this. Being here always soothed me, no matter how upset I was when arriving. I'm hoping it'll do the same for Daniel. As we sit, I turn toward him on the bench, one leg pinned beneath me so I can watch him as he speaks. Stars are beginning to twinkle in a sky that is fading from magenta to purple. I hope the dwindling light will last because he sure is cute. Have you ever seen Rebel Without a Cause? Daniel asks. He looks disappointed when I shake my head, but he presses on anyway. Sal Minio's character, Plato, the way he looks at James Dean, the little excuses he makes to touch him. It was like seeing myself on the big screen, but a better version who wasn't trying to smother everything he felt inside. I wanted to be like him, I wanted my own Jim Stark, and I almost got my wish. Everyone started dressing like James Dean after that movie came out, but there was this guy at my school who was always an outsider. He had a leather jacket, greased back hair, and these jeans that were. He swallows before continuing. Really tight. We were never in the same class. I'd notice him in the hall on occasion, but after seeing the movie, I became obsessed. Sometimes I'd follow him to his next class. I didn't have a plan. I just wanted us to be close. In the same way that Plato wanted to be around Jim Stark. So I kept going back every day. When I told my story, it brought back the raw emotion of a new crush, which always makes me feel high. Daniel sounds sad. His expression is glum, too, especially when I ask, "Did you ever talk to him?" Daniel's knuckles are white as he grips the seat of the bench. Almost. I saw him in the school cafeteria once, which was unusual. I told my friends my stomach hurt and that I was going to see the nurse, when really, I just wanted to sit somewhere close by so I could watch him. After a while, he noticed me looking. I froze, unsure what to do, and then Daniel's chin starts to tremble. He smiled at me, and it felt really nice. He turns his face away to wipe at his eyes. I give him a moment before asking, "What happened?" Daniel takes a deep breath. I smiled back. Some friends of his came up to him then, so he got distracted, but I held that smile in my mind. I felt so happy. I know how dumb that must sound. It doesn't, I assure him. I totally get it. Daniel sighs before continuing. That same day, they played a film in sociology class, warning us not to hitchhike or get into cars with strangers because homosexuals were out preying on young boys. The same day! It felt like a sign from God to stop me from going down that path. When the narrator explained that homosexuality is a mental illness, Daniel, I say, refusing to speak again until his vulnerable eyes meet mine. What if the guy showing up in the cafeteria was a sign from God? Maybe he wanted you and him to be together. I was sure it was the opposite, Daniel says, shaking his head. Like I was being given one last chance before I went too far. So I talked to my dad about it. I told him what I was struggling with and asked for help. He said it wasn't too late if we made some changes. I wasn't allowed to have guy friends spend the night anymore in case I felt tempted. That was the pits on camping trips with my Boy Scout troop. Usually you share a tent with someone else and it's fun. You can stay up, talk, goof around. I mean, it's not like I have those same urges with every guy I see, just a few. But my dad insisted. He told my scout leader it was for medical reasons. This got around, and soon everyone was saying that I wet the bed at night. It reached a point where I invited the other scouts to check my sleeping bag in the morning. Some of them took me up on it. They didn't find anything, of course, but it was still humiliating. I was 16 years old by then. That's horrible, I say, wincing in sympathy. Yeah. Eventually, I decided to stop hanging out with guys at all, figuring it was easier that way. Was it, though? He shakes his head. I lost friends. I couldn't explain why I wouldn't sleep over or go swimming. I guess they thought I didn't like them. If it wasn't for Gloria, I never would have gotten through high school. Just to summarize, I say, so far all your dad's advice has done is make you miserable, right? Have the urges gone away? Or the fantasies? No, Daniel says, his voice hoarse. But what am I supposed to do? The question isn't rhetorical. He's searching my face, waiting for an answer. I can't remind him of Olympic medal-winning athletes who are out, or openly gay politicians, or even queer actors and musicians he can look up to as role models. He hasn't seen any of that, and won't for decades. I also can't urge him to come out in an era when he might be beaten to death or subjected to inhumane procedures in a mental hospital. Be smart about it, I answer. Live the life that makes you happiest while being cautious. He shakes his head like he's still uncertain. Does this feel wrong to you? I ask, placing my hand over his. When you touch me, does it feel dirty or sinful? Because for me, it's the only thing that feels right. If denying who you are makes you miserable, maybe you should start acting on your feelings instead. My heart nearly breaks when he pulls his hand away. I almost grab him when he rises up like he intends to leave. He doesn't stand fully, though. He straightens, glances around while on high alert, and then sinks back down on the bench, his attention fully on me. His chest is rising and falling, his pale green eyes open wide like he's trying to decide if he should jump off a cliff or not. I think I know what he wants. I begin to reach a hand toward his cheek. It's all the invitation he needs. Daniel leans toward me. I slide my hand around to the back of his neck, but I don't pull him in. This needs to be his decision. But I sure as hell hope he makes the right one because I really, really want to kiss the boy. Reggie? He asks. If I saw you looking at me from across a cafeteria, I tell him, I'd smile too. His chin begins to tremble again, but this time he looks happy. Daniel closes his eyes and presses his lips against mine. I breathe in as he does so, having dreamt of this moment long before we ever met. Then I lean my forehead against his and say, this is good. It's who we are. Tears streak down his cheeks. I wipe one away with a thumb and release him, unsure where he's at emotionally. He grabs my hand to stop me from moving it away completely. After going rigid and looking around like a prairie dog searching for predators, he relaxes and intertwines his fingers with mine. This is crazy, he whispers, which only makes it more exciting. I reply, forbidden love is the best kind. If it wasn't, people wouldn't still be talking about Romeo and Juliet. They would have been just another young couple who got hitched and had babies. What a bore. Is that what we're going to be? He asks. Another Romeo and Juliet? With a happier ending, I hope. My stomach sinks when I think about returning to my own time. Maybe it's wrong of me to lead Daniel on like this, when I know I can't stick around. But I want him to have a positive experience with another guy, something he can cling to when doubt sets in late at night or when people try to change who he is. I don't want you to leave, Daniel says, perhaps having similar thoughts. I won't, I tell him. Not yet. Good. Can we kiss again? I laugh. I can't help it, especially when I agree and he does another prairie dog search of our surroundings. When our lips touch, all I can think about is how good it would be to get him alone. I don't want to rush anything, though, or play games with his heart, so I'll lead by example and be cautious. Although I do have something more important to teach him. Before I go home to my own time, I'll make sure he knows how beautiful love between two men can be. Being gay isn't a mental disorder. I'm stretched out on the front seat of the Bel Air as Daniel drives me home. My back is against the interior door, and I've slipped off my shoes so I can press my feet against his legs. I want to reinforce how good that sort of contact can feel. And I want to build him up with lessons I learned when coming to grips with my identity. Biologists have documented homosexual behavior in animals, and I don't mean when a dog is so horny that it'll hump everything in sight. There's more to this than sex. It's emotional. They've seen that in animals too. Not only does same-sex courtship exist, but they'll also form families and even adopt. Get out of here, Daniel says with an incredulous expression. I mean it.
Such things might not get reported now due to current attitudes, but in my day, gay penguins make headlines. Daniel laughs, and I'm happy to join him, but I also want to make sure he understands the point. It's not limited to mammals, bugs, fish, reptiles, birds, you name it. That's important. Nobody can claim that salmon turn gay because their fathers spent too much time at the bar, or because their mothers let them play dress-up in women's clothing. This is part of nature, not nurture. Gay fish? Daniel repeats, looking concerned. Yep. It's enough to make a guy give up seafood. Almost. He laughs again, and I've already decided that it'll never be enough. I want to hear that happy sound on repeat. Give me an extended house mix, a 20-minute anthem that samples his voice, his laugh, and even his sigh, which is what I hear next. Growing up in the future must be nice. Yeah, it's easier. But people are people, including us. You still want to fit in during high school, even when you're trying not to. Sort of like all those rebels who decide to dress like James Dean. They're only trading one kind of conformity for another. Maybe that's what it takes to figure out who you really want to be. I sure struggled with it, even with most of the country telling me that it's okay to be gay. And I had to put up with some of the same bullshit claims. Being gay doesn't make someone a child molester. That sort of behavior isn't exclusive to us. Straight guys do it too. And women. People aren't criminals because they're straight. But there are straight people who are criminals. You see what I mean? By straight, you mean heterosexual. Exactly. Being one doesn't automatically make you the other. That's all I'm saying. I let him dwell on this as he takes a right turn into Gloria's neighborhood and parks in front of her house. Uh-oh, Daniel says suddenly. We told Gloria we were going back to the gate, but we didn't. I was supposed to write down the Latin words and everything else. What do we say to her? I consider this while slipping on my shoes. I think it's a bad idea for him to come out, but I also know how one lie can lead to another, each like a wedge that slowly pries a friendship apart. We'll tell her the truth. We got distracted and ended up talking. And the rest? If she's supportive of you in the future, she might be the same for me now. That's not my decision to make, I say carefully. But until you decide, it's better to be vague or ask for a subject to remain private, rather than be dishonest with someone you care about. Daniel stares at me in awe. You're so wise. This makes me chuckle. No, I'm actually a fool who makes a ton of mistakes. But as my grandma always says, learn from it, Daniel finishes for me. We both laugh. I guess Gloria hasn't changed that much over the years, I say. You told her about going to your dad for help? He nods, so I continue. Then you know how trustworthy she's been with that secret. Think about it. There's no rush. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow? Daniel is biting his bottom lip, one of his knees bouncing up and down. When he adjusts the rearview mirror and checks the side mirrors, I realize what he's hoping for. I lean over and kiss him, keeping it simple, but long enough for him to savor. Then I pull back, smile, and say, yeah, see you tomorrow.
When a young man is swept back in time to the 1950s, he must decide if he wants to return home or stay with the special guy he falls in love with while there, in, out of time, into you. Available as an audiobook, ebook, or paperback at your favorite retailer.